Does man, that marvel of the universe, that glorious paradox who sent me to the stars, still make war against his brother?
Welcome to the Madhouse. This is a Lorehounds one-shots podcast. We're the Lorehounds, your guides to the simian apocalypse. I'm Elysia.
And I'm David, and this is our coverage of the Planet of the Apes franchise so far. I'll be joining Elysia for the first part of the discussion to relive the original Planet of the Apes films.
And then I'll be joined by Logan, the person who inspired me to take my recent deep dive into this IP to discuss the new films, especially, of course, the brand new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, a film we, spoiler alert, both loved.
We're going to keep my part of the discussion spoiler-free for the new film timeline with a nostalgic tour of the original films instead. And then at the end of the podcast, we'll talk about our upcoming schedule as well as news and updates about all of our affiliate podcasts.
If you're enjoying what we do and are interested in supporting the Lorehounds community, then you can help us out by sharing this episode with anyone else in your life who enjoys or is curious about this franchise. And you can also check us out on Supercast or Patreon. So Supercast is like Patreon, but built better for podcasters. Listeners and podcasters both get better benefits. Subscribers on either platform will get early and ad-free podcasts, extra episodes, and other benefits. More info at the end of the pod.
If you want to get in touch with us, there's a couple of options. You can send emails to lorehounds@thelorehounds.com or head over to our website and there either use the voicemail feature or the contact form.
Also, join us on our Discord. We've got a fun, active community with great mod team. And we've got channels and threads set up for all the different shows and projects that we've got going on. You'll find links for everything in the show notes for this episode. So, David, thank you for talking through this with me. Now, we're going to be talking mostly about like the original Planet of the Apes, and you have quite a bit of nostalgia for that. What's your background with this IP?
Yeah, these were a kind of movie that was always on Saturday afternoon matinee on the whatever local broadcast station, in whatever market that you lived in. And I don't think I ever saw any of these in the theater, nor did I ever watch these in any particular order. They were always catch as catch can, right? You'd come home from being out doing whatever when our parents would let us back into the house. And you'd flip on the TV, pre-dinner, and whatever was on, and be it an old World War II movie or Westerns or Planet of the Apes. And so I've seen them all, never in any particular order. And I don't even know if I've ever watched any of them from start to finish other than maybe the original film. And so they're just part of that fabric of my childhood, that sort of nostalgia of whatever was on, and that's what you had, and you watched it. And I think by the time that VHS rentals and movie rental shops and things like that were around, we never bothered to rent them because we'd seen them all already, and we weren't really interested in film history. We're interested in being entertained, and so they were kind of like, we know all of those, so why bother, be watching them. So I think coming back into this now with this little project is the first time where I've actually sat down and watched them, some of them from beginning to end, considered what they mean, considered what is what's so essential and what is so poignant about these movies, because they do have quite a bit to say from a social satirical standpoint. So, so these are just really deeply embedded, but in this really haphazard way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I asked my mom when I started getting into this, like, did you used to watch these films? And she's like, oh yeah, I watched them all back in the day. But I guess for whatever reason, they weren't my parents' favorites. Like I was raised on Dune and Star Wars, and these were the films we watched over and over as a family. And so I was aware of these, but never really just never went back to watch them. And then Logan, actually, I saw we're in the Academy of Death Racers server together, and he started this project of starting at the beginning. I was like, you know what? I was gonna just like rewatch the modern trilogy because I've seen the Burton film and I'd seen Rise in the modern trilogy. So I was going to watch all those for the new one. I was like, nope, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. And I am so glad that I did because I got really into the IP. I love the original films. I watched the TV shows, the documentary, started picking up and reading the comics. And it's just now become one of my favorite franchises very quickly.
That's amazing. I know we've been chatting on the side and you're like, oh, I got to watch this movie. It's like, wow, you really have consumed all of even the television show. That's pretty wild. Because I don't even think I watched the television show. I think I was dimly aware of it, but there were other things on that were grabbing our attention at that time.
Right.
When 77 came out, that's when I could really become aware of modern media, with the Star Wars 77 release. And so, it was Star Wars, it was Battlestar Galactica, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I think by then the television show had already passed by because it was so short-lived. So,
but it's just one season.
Yeah, but I during watching the documentary and seeing some clips of it, I was like, oh yeah, and then it's like, oh, these dudes, like I kind of recognize the actors, and yeah.
Yeah, and Roddy McDowall came back, the one who played the ape the most.
Yes, exactly.
So when you were talking about, you notice more the themes of these films, what were the themes that were standing out to you in this series?
Well, I think as coming back as an adult and looking at them and being a podcaster, obviously trying to think about things in a different way, what really struck me is how deeply political all of these movies are. There's a outer wrapping of gonzo filmmaking, but inside there are deeply political messages. And I know that in some cases they weren't intending them to necessarily be. In other ways, in some ways, and then in other ways, they were being intentional about some of the stuff that they were addressing. But I think when you look at this, especially the original movie, it is a satirical mirror of the power structures of the patriarchy, of religion, the use of religion, the use of or authoritarianism and militarism. All of these things are very front and center. And then I started thinking about like ape society, and you have gorillas and chimpanzees and orangutans. And while that's not something that I'm always aware of too with these movies is the history of racism in America and how we've struggled with that from deep in our country's history. And I've always these movies always sort of make me think about that in some ways. And so I was thinking about this idea of structuring society around species, and the gorillas are the brutes, the orangutans are the religious and political leaders, and the chimpanzees being scientists and other types of intellectuals. It's very essentialist, right? It boils down sociological function into the species. And then once you're a member of that species, you're limited in what you can do, right? And it's a science fiction show, so we're not, there's a certain amount of realism that we're not pushing past. But
right. Right. I have a lot of complaints about the way that they portray different species of apes. But anyway.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that that functions as part of that satirical mirror, and to make us examine and think about how we structure our own society. And I think that's something that is what really captures people's imagination. So there's with the original films, there's the, and what they were going for. And you picked this up in the documentary, is they're going for G-rated films, right? Which are general audience for kids.
Seemed to have a much looser definition back in the day.
Right? It was just wild. And they were trying to give people some action adventure style entertainment. But then why do these films, like this film, I mean, okay, we have something, like 11 films in the Fast and Furious franchise. Okay, that's wild. But if you look at a lot of the other, and Star Wars has 9 major movies, so that's pretty high. But Planet of the Apes is up there in terms of sequels and total number of films. What's the total number of films now? 5,
There's 5 in the
3?
original, 2 seasons of television, 4 in the new series so far, and then books and comic book.
Right. So what is it? 10?
And a
Is it
game.
right for at least for franchise movies? What are we
So
at?
there's
10?
9. Oh yeah,
9.
sorry, 10 including
The newest one, right?
Well, yeah, I meant including the Tim Burton one, which I was blocking out.
Okay, right. So for any franchise, that is significant, and especially when you go back and look at the first 5 films. Was there a franchise industry when these original films were? I'm not as much of a film historian to answer this question, but I think Planet of the Apes is
It kind
certainly
of
early
invented
on.
this.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
invented this because, it predated Star Wars, which kind of
Right.
kicked it up to another level. But also we learned in the documentary that it sort of invented film merchandising in a way.
Right. Right. Exactly. It was very early in that. So,
And they did not think there was going to be a sequel, which
Right.
is, why there's some weirdness too.
Yeah. So, and I think we're going to talk about each of the original
absolutely.
films in a little bit more detail. But this idea that how does a franchise persist or last? There has to be some essential quality or nature to it to keep people coming back to it. And I think it's these issues of deeply intertwined social, examining social structure, being satirical about it, holding up that mirror, examining power structures in society. And so there's some substance wrapped around some really gonzo filmmaking. Some of the later films, you're just like, wow. Or even the second one. Oh my gosh. And what's wild, this thought that, and again, in the documentary, they mentioned this, that each of the budgets of the original films subsequently went down. They kept forcing the budgets down on them. And so they were just getting, but yet expecting more and more in terms of audience, in return in terms of the box office.
Right.
Which is just wild, that they think that, okay, they were really squeezing the blood from the stone here.
Yeah.
And yet they kept pulling them off, and and people kept coming back to them. And I think that's a really interesting thing that I'd never considered before. And so yeah, it's a whole new level of appreciation. But that first movie, really an exceptional science fiction film, and what they did and how they pushed the boundaries and how they pushed it through actually getting it made is pretty exceptional. By the time we get the last of the films, it's pretty whacked out. They really overdid it. So then, thinking about the modern franchise movies, I think I saw one of them. I can't remember which one. And I bounced off of it because it didn't have that gonzo nature and that satirical cutting edge to it. All of these movies are very cynical and satirical in some way. There's a little bit of cynicism. There's a little bit of, the satire is very sharp. And in some of the modern movies and that I've seen, and I haven't seen that many, I didn't find that quality to them. And so I was just kind of like, and so I was stuck in my own nostalgia. I was looking for something, and I was rummaging around in the attic and looking at this new thing going, okay, does it match my old experience? And it didn't. And so then I was like, it's not grabbing me. And that's on me. So I have a really hard time evaluating the newer films because I'm so stuck in the nostalgia of the old films.
Yeah, I can see that because the newer films, I mean, they have the political bent. They have, the analysis of society, but they also are more grounded in a way in reality. It's not just like So they actually have the apes. How could they actually physically evolve over
Right.
300 years? The jump to the new one, and yeah, so it's not. It doesn't have the same silly punch.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it does have the rest of it, which, from my perspective, I was like, well, I like that they're bringing something fresh to the table. Not that I uniformly adore all the new ones. You'll hear Logan and I talk about that, but
Right. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Cool.
I do like that they're doing something different. Yeah.
Right on.
What would be your Pukila rating for this, for the original series?
I think it would have to be probably around what do we call the null Pukila, like the middle, the zero, right?
Yeah,
I
0.
guess it's zero. Yeah, I think it's 0 on the scale, maybe a 0.5. I mean there's violence, but there's not a lot. It's a very simplistic and stylized. It was a G rating, so they were going for a G rating, so it doesn't really go.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah, there are
except,
some.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, as I say, except for Conquest is a bit more violent.
Sure, and that one has some very deeply biting social commentary.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I think that all the violence is very staged and
Right,
sanitized in a way.
right.
So, and I was saying that just the original movie itself, there's some action, some violent action, but there's no John Wick style
Right.
stuff.
But they
So,
do, so spoiler alert for the original films, they do at one point off screen shoot a baby chimp.
right, that's right. Yeah, no, they do in the well, they don't. Yeah, they don't. They it's wrapped in a blanket, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
You do see the shot land, but there's a blanket.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty funny.
Um, I think I like indeed, I see in the notes you have the Western vibes.
Well, I thought we'd talk about it a little too when we get it, especially when we get it to Beneath the Planet of the Apes. But
Mm-hmm.
you can really see the Fox Ranch is very well represented in all of these films. It's an iconic landscape from film and television of that era, that dry scrubland, with scratchy mountains. And so lots of Star Trek has been filmed out that in that environs. And so that landscape is very burned in. But as well, I noticed in some of the action. Now, I didn't finish all of the original films. I got up to Escape. I wasn't able to finish Conquest and Battle by the time we are recording this. And this in the original films, especially with Beneath, one of the things that I really noticed was how much DNA is in the action sequences of the Western style television and movie shooting that these studios had been doing a lot of. So a lot of stagecoach jumps and, jumping from the stagecoach or jumping on or off or fighting with somebody who is driving a
Mm-hmm.
horse-drawn cart or using a lot of horses or jumping out of a tree, down onto somebody. There's a lot of Western, from the film and television history of American, filming Westerns. There's a lot of that action DNA in here, and it makes sense because that's what we were just coming out of in terms of history. And so all the cameramen and the stuntmen, and the production people that was what they knew how to do, right? Everything
Mm-hmm.
looks like everything looks like a nail if the only tool you have is a hammer. And so they really wove that in quite a lot. So that I just found that those two things, even all the way up to Conquest, which I didn't watch, but they're just sort of, okay, well, we'll throw in some World War II Jeeps and some explosions into the same sort of set piece. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty funny. Whereas Escape, I think, is the one that deviates the biggest from all of that.
Sure. Yeah. That's the more cosmopolitan one,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah. So yeah, if we start at the beginning, this is all based on a 1963 book written by Pierre Boulle called
Mm-hmm.
La Planète des Singes. And just a public service announcement, the literal translation of La Planète des Singes is Planet of the Apes. We don't have to call it Monkey Planet. I need people to stop. It's a pet peeve.
I see. Got it.
Um, but yeah, I recently picked up a copy to read, and David, you were talking about you were interested in reading it as well at some point.
I was going to try. I was going to my local our local library is part of a digital consortium, and I went to see if I could go check it out and skim through it really quick. But my library card had expired, and I had it just got all messy in terms of getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been preparing to do some coverage of the original
Alien.
movie Alien, and so and that was some background work on Dune. So my IP bucket is a little full
Yeah.
right now,
No,
and
yeah. I'm
I
not reading
haven't
it anytime soon.
right. So yeah, no, I didn't. I intended to if my library card hadn't been expired, I definitely would have downloaded it and read it really, or skimmed maybe the opening of it pretty quickly. I don't know. I didn't have a sense of how big the book is. Is it a big read or is it a short read?
It's not a big read. It's
Uh-huh.
there are some differences that I do actually know what the whole plot of the book is.
Mm-hmm.
And I skimmed like the opening part too, just out of
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. I was also I got it in French, which is my third language, and like so it's can be a struggle for me to just read for pleasure in that. But
Sure.
I
Yeah. Right.
skimmed,
Because
and
you're
it's
working a little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I skimmed it, and it's pretty accessible. So I assume the English
Okay.
translation is as well. But I know it's framed by this as a couple who's in space. And sorry, spoiler alert for this,
As you do.
decades old book.
Exactly.
The couple turns out they are apes, and they find this like sort of message in a bottle in space, and it's this account from a human man who goes through the events of the book. And the difference is that they're more advanced technologically in the book, but they basically didn't have the budget for that in the original films. So they're like, oh yeah, they're just a simpler culture. So that's an opportunity where the new films can pick up on the original book more. And also, yeah, he gets a whole family, and they actually do escape, and they talk.
Okay.
But it's funny because Boole considered it one of his lesser works, but
Mm-hmm.
is basically this is all kind of the brainchild, this IP of Arthur P. Jacobs, who he had Kong fever. He was like, I wish I had made Kong. What can I make instead? And he found this
Oh,
book,
interesting.
and he just
Okay.
ushered this whole IP into existence. And then he passed away right before the TV show was made. So he wasn't
Okay.
involved from there on out. Yeah.
It's interesting. I didn't realize that aspect of it, and it's. I think I don't wonder if at some level this movie and the fascination of it doesn't reflect on the modern sensibilities of evolution and Darwinism, and certainly there are times in American history where there was a struggle over teaching creationism versus evolution in the schools, and there's a lot of stuff there. So I don't wonder if some of that modern American history and that struggle of who are we and how do we differentiate ourselves from other species on the planet, apes being the close relatives, is not bound up in that. And if Jacobs is not struggling, but somehow captivated by this idea, if that does not play some part in his energetic response to this story, this Boole story.
Yeah. Well, I feel like just judging based on the step down in nuance from the movies to the television show, I feel like he was the one who was really pushing for some deeper commentary.
Right. And again, going back to what we were talking about before, without a deeper commentary, I don't think that these films last as long as
Right.
that they have,
Absolutely. Hmm.
and especially getting a modern remake, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's significant. I mean, I know that the studios are always looking for cheap IP to mine, but they, in the modern films, none of them are inexpensive films. None of them are films that feel very schlocky. I mean, the amount of CGI and voice acting and the work that they have to do, just because you can use CGI doesn't mean that it's easier to produce a film. That is a lot of work in its own right. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the original film, Jacobs pulled together kind of a dream team. Boole was involved in it, but
Mhm.
ultimately Rod Serling wrote of Twilight Zone fame. He wrote the first major draft, which
Right.
was later revised by Michael Wilson. This film was revised over and over and over, and then the film was directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. And Serling, though, he's the one who wrote the iconic ending.
Right. Yeah. Which is a really great. This is a Twilight Zone-esque story. There's no doubt. I didn't realize that
Hmm.
Serling had been involved in writing of the script until we started, digging into this. And then I was like, oh, I had one of those penny drop moments where I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it all makes sense now. And again, like a lot of other things, Perry Mason, Twilight Zone, I know those aren't necessarily connected, but I'm trying to think of old television shows. Gomer Pyle. This is the kind of cultural refuse that was on syndication when I was a kid and when we were just sort of not shoved in front of the TV, but allowed to watch all this kind of TV. And so, yeah, watching a lot of Twilight Zone and Outer Limits was certainly baked into the nostalgia of my youth, along with the Planet of the Apes movies. And it never occurred to me that this was Rod Serling, but boy,
Mm.
once I realized it, it was like, yes, this is clearly because the ending and I think that's what grabbed the audiences too,
Hmm.
that shock and awe of, oh my God, right? We've been on Earth this whole time. Spoiler.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I wish that I had seen it before I knew the big twists because I kept
Mhm.
watching it and thinking, like, if I didn't know, then this would blow my mind.
Right, right. Yeah, you have to sort of manufacture
Hmm.
that sense of surprise for yourself because it is so baked into our cultural lexicon. Charlton Heston pounding his fist into the sand
Hmm.
and screaming, from The Simpsons to I don't know how many other times, that motif has been played out. It is
Hmm.
such a cornerstone of um, modern cultural literacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised by the ape makeup, like
Right?
for a
Yeah.
film from the 60s. Wow. That was 1/5 their budget and $1 million.
The shout out to the documentary as well because they really spend a lot of time talking about how that process worked and that the original franchise the whole series of them would not have worked were it not for the effort that they put into the makeup. If it
Yeah.
looked ridiculous or funny, people would have just been like, meh, we've seen these before in the 50s monster movies, right? Where it's just a person in a rubber suit, right? It's not going to work. But the ability for the actors to be able to emote through the appliances, through the mask work, it really is what differentiates these films from anything else at the
Yeah.
time.
So John Chambers was the makeup artist, and he ended up earning an honorary Oscar
Okay,
eventually. But yeah,
right.
he was definitely this. It seems like this is the work Oscars are made for, but whatever.
Yeah, and the fact that Kim Hunter and Roddy McDowell
Hmm.
show I think Roddy McDowell is a perfect person to play Cornelius as well. He has
Hmm.
there's a kind of gentleness to his nature as a person
Right.
that comes through, and Kim Hunter is so uh, kind of she's I don't want to say she's sarcastic, but she has
Hmm.
this very cutting way about her, but with a
But
gentleness and a
with warmth.
sweetness.
Yeah.
With more, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those two actors, I think, without them, I mean, Charlton Heston is iconic in his own way.
Meh.
Yeah, well, but he was a huge
Yeah,
star
I
at the
know. I
time,
know.
right?
I
Yeah,
know. Hmm.
massive. And granted, he's the marquee headline, but this again, I don't think the franchise goes for as long and as wide as it does without McDowell and Hunter. They
Right.
really are. They really set the floor for this. I mean, I know we lose them in Escape, but it
Well,
really.
Well, no, they
they're
come in Escape.
right. But I'm saying at the end of Escape.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. But then McDowell, he plays Caesar.
Reprises. Yeah, exactly.
And then he plays in the TV show, he plays Galen. And all three of those characters have such different personalities. I really came out of this with a deep love of Roddy McDowell.
He was very much in our, just part of our, of movie stars at the time. He's again a big star in the sky for us at that time. And his on-screen persona was so sweet, but yet so confident. He really was it was a really special actor.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him personally. I don't know much about his personal history and acting history, but he was definitely a big presence for us.
Yeah. I looked up some stuff about him and,
Mhm.
and it's interesting, but then not surprising to learn that he was a gay man who was kind
Yeah.
of trying to hide it as you did at the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
And he died of lung cancer actually right after that documentary that we keep talking
Oh,
about was
wow.
released in
Okay.
98. So I have to wonder if he made that documentary, to just sort of leave behind his legacy. Like,
Mm.
this is my legacy.
Right.
Thank you
Right.
for watching.
Right. To dive in on the original film a little bit more too, when we were talking about this idea of we have to manufacture our own surprise for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was watching on my laptop screen in bed, I kept trying to put myself into a theater experience, like on a big 70 millimeter. And then thinking about the sound design and the music and how otherworldly and different they really pushed the boundaries of
Mm-hmm.
the audio space for that movie. And so, I really wish I could have had that experience of I'd love a re-release, in a big, in a laser, or I don't even know if an IMAX, just something big and colorful and bright. Because the audio and the music is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary.
Completely agree. And I thought that I would hate the fact that the only human woman character just sits around not
It's
speaking.
mute. Yeah.
But I think Linda Harrison did such a good job, and to know, she came in this as a complete newbie, just
Right.
modeling background,
Right.
and without any lines, she sort of grounded the first two movies a lot,
That's
especially the
true.
second.
Yeah, that's true. And played a kind of a pivotal role in terms of giving the audience some structure to grab onto, and creating a dimension to it that I think without her, I think it would have been a very different movie and less interesting in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So
Because
I'm
we
very.
needed Taylor to care for something in this
Mhm.
world.
Mm.
Right. And without him being attached to something, then, what's the point? There would be a kind of a nihilism, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've gotten quite attached to the name Nova now, and I judge very hard in the other movies. How is it used? So
Right.
they
Okay.
completely squandered it in the Tim Burton movie, but the new series has given a good respect to the name.
Okay.
They've put respect on Nova's name.
Okay. Fair enough.
But my favorite character from the film series is definitely Zira.
She's wonderful. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And her willingness to challenge the power structures, her willingness to never let the patriarchal orangutans, ride roughshod over them, where Cornelius is always like, Zira, pipe down. She's out there. She's loud and proud. And then, of course, in Escape, well, I know we're going to talk about Escape in a minute, but in Escape, where she goes and she gives a speech to a woman's club, right, and says, we have voices, we have brains, we should use them. It had again going to a very political place in this wildly scientific or sci-fi genre. The writers are constantly putting in little digs and pushes at challenging modern assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim Hunter, I think if Kim Hunter hadn't had, again, the actor does such a great job in terms of not softening the message, but she's so genuine and
Mm-hmm.
authentic in some way that she doesn't sound angry or she's ribbing society in this way where she's winking and smiling at the same time as poking with a sharp elbow. And that combination delivery, I think, is more effective than if she were just, jamming us with her elbow.
Yeah. I'm glad. Well, we'll get to the third movie in a moment. Did you have anything more to add about the first?
There was one thing that I just never quite understood, which is Taylor's sardonicism, I guess if I can say it that way. He's very sardonic. He is a man who is very well, and you played the opening quote, which is really great, where he's sitting in the cockpit of the spaceship, and he's really over humanity, right? He's just like, oh, we're idiots, and then that plays nicely at the end, but then there's times in the movie where he's just deep, like he's really ribbing. What was the name of the guy who gets the lobotomy? Who?
Yeah, they're friends.
Landon. Was it Landon?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. He's giving him a hard time while they're, walking through the forbidden zone area right after they had crashed. And I was like, I don't get, why is he ribbing this guy? So that was like something I never quite got. But the way that Heston played Taylor is he's so over human society and human culture, but yet when he's faced with ape society, it's a madhouse.
Yeah.
It's a mad, right? He can't accept it either. So he's this man who's trapped between two worlds. So I guess that plays. I guess that doesn't. I was scratching my head over it when I watched the movie the other day, but I guess that kind of works out in the long run. That he is this sense of trapped between two worlds gives us an entry into examining both worlds. What did you make of the see no evil scene when the orangutans are having their mock trial and they actually cover their eyes and mouth and ears? Did you find that funny, or I found it a little too on the nose?
I honestly didn't even notice it until it was
Oh,
pointed
really?
out to me. Yeah.
Oh.
So when I saw it in retrospect, I was like, oh, cute, because, it didn't distract me in the moment. But
Okay, that's good.
I thought that it was well blended enough for me, at least.
Apparently it played very well when it first came out. So I thought it was a little bit too much because they really do make a point of doing it, but whatever. It's fine. But the two biggest scenes, right, which are just so iconic in terms of film history, are the, take your hands off me moment. And of course, then the final scene of seeing the Statue of Liberty there.
Right.
Interestingly enough, do you know about the 1 hour mark thing in films?
What do you mean?
There's this idea that for a film that's usually, under 2 hours, there is this point in the film that some people, and I can't find it in official literature, but it exists, and you can find, Reddit threads and things about this, that at the 1 hour mark, the movie has to have a punch or a turn or a coming awareness of something to then kick the movie into the next chapters, the next cycles of the story plot, so that by 1 hour, if you don't have that twist or punch or whatever, however you want to describe it, then the rest of the movie will kind of drag and it won't have a story driven energy or dynamicness to it. And so the take your hands off me, you damn dirty ape line comes almost on the hour mark exactly. It's like between 1 hour and 1 hour, 2 minutes, depending on what copy.
Okay.
And that's when the film takes a definitive turn, right? That's when it really amps up its action. So I thought that was really great. And then we kind of talked about the Statue of Liberty a little bit, but that is the way that they shot that, the way that the film ends on that is such a powerful moment. And you just have to applaud the creativity and the genius insight into
Well, yeah.
flipping the whole time. Oh my God, it's not another planet, it's Earth, right? It's just
Although
such
the
a
Statue of Liberty shouldn't be on the coast on a rocky outcrop, but fine.
no,
We'll ignore. They
exactly.
do kind of explain that in the next film, why.
It's true. It's true. But it works so well
Yeah.
visually. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think that's about all I have to say for the original. It's a real standout movie, and I would love someday, if I had the time, I'd love to run through sort of all of the iconic sci-fi movies, and
Mm,
this one it stands as one of the greats all
right.
time. So
Yeah, I'm glad we get to talk about it today. And
yeah, for
you
sure.
you made me think about this whole 1 hour thing. Now I'm wondering if in the first one in the new franchise, there's an iconic line. Sorry, mild spoiler, but I'm wondering if it happens 1 hour in. It's the line is only no.
Mm,
So I'm
yeah,
wondering. I'm going to pay
yeah. Go
attention
back.
now.
I mean, on any given film, be it a rom-com, be it a prestige drama, be it sci-fi, look to see when what's happening right around the 1 hour mark. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
anywhere between 55 and 105, somewhere in
Yeah.
there has to be some kind of, because the what I've heard about this is that the audience's energy and attention needs to be reinvigorated
Right.
at some point.
Well, so it's interesting because Logan and I will talk about, you'll hear in the in our conversation that the new film Kingdom, it
Hmm.
has a turning point 40 minutes in. It's a
Okay.
2.5 hour film, so it's like a third of the way
Oof.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing changes.
Shifts at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's a question because in the past we had 30-minute or 1 hour television shows, and then we had 1.5 hour plus or minus 1.5 hour films.
Mhm.
Getting an audience to sit 2.5 hours was a hard thing. And so now, we've got 2.5 and 3 hour
I
long
was
films.
completely engrossed, but yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like that. Yeah.
So what does that do to the flow? What does it do to the dynamic arc of a movie? I don't know how that plays out. I just
Yeah.
know that in the 1.5 hour zone, that the 1 hour is crucial.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you need to definitely make sure that your film has warranted that. And in this case, Logan and I both felt that it did. Although I
Okay.
know obviously there are other people who are like, well, it could have been half an hour shorter or whatever.
Right. Right.
Okay, so the second film in the original franchise is Beneath the Planet of the Apes, released in 1970. And so they basically were, this is a funny story because they were not going to have, I mean, sequels apparently weren't a thing then.
Right.
But this did so well. They're like, we have to do another one. And they called Charlton Heston and he's like, I don't want to be in a sequel. He's like, fine, I will appear if I can only be at the beginning and the end.
Yeah. And then he throws in the "you kill me" at the end, and it's
Hmm.
great, and it actually ends up, I think, working really well
Well, when
in
I
terms
saw,
of.
yeah.
Mhm. Go ahead.
No, but when I saw the end of the movie, so spoiler alert, but the end of the movie, it ends with him, um, his character blowing up the entire planet. I'm like, how are there three more films after this?
It's a wild film. It is so whacked, and again, like I said at the top, I watch these out of order. I never watch
Yeah.
them in whole and
So
complete.
you didn't know that
I
was.
always assumed that this was later. This is one of the
Yeah.
last ones.
I have something I have to say to Charlton
Yes.
Heston about this.
Okay.
You maniacs! You blew it up! Oh, damn you! God damn
Damn
you
you
all
all
to
to
hell!
hell! That line is seared into my brain, deep into
but
my synapses.
but yeah, he blew it
And
up.
he blew it up, right? It's
Yeah.
so great. And I think this is where and then of course Escape fixes it, right?
Hmm.
But this idea of the time traveling paradox, would we have as much time travel in our modern storytelling were it not for this movie? And
Hmm.
the fact that for Escape, this and Escape, that the studio is like, need next ape movie,
Yeah.
period, right? That's like the kind of
Yeah.
note that they would get.
Apes live. New movie needed or something like that. Yeah.
Wild. And they had to invent something, right? And it works, and it's and I think it creates the modern time paradox time travel,
Mm-hmm.
Back to the Future, Star Trek, all the stuff. Would we have all of it without these movies? I
Right.
don't know.
Right. Yeah. So the director of this one, Schaffner, was unavailable. So Ted Post stepped in and they said he, quote unquote, struggled with the material. And this is Paul Den, by the way, wrote this and the next two as well. But this is definitely the most wild and gonzo of the.
Totally. And Roddy McDowall's not in this one, but
Right.
they sort of, slip through it. It's fine.
Yeah.
At the beginning where he is, where he and Nova are riding, where Taylor and Nova are riding in the flames, and he falls through the rock wall and stuff, and you're just like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? And then I forget the name of the actor who they replaced Heston
James
with.
Franciscus.
Yes, right. James Franciscus, who was
Brent.
a television, right?
Yeah.
Who's a television star, not a movie star. But damn, if he is not a carbon copy of Heston.
Yeah, but I liked him better. I thought he was an upgrade. Yeah, because for me, Heston was just always too like over the top, and James Franciscus, I just felt more believable about.
That's interesting. Yeah, he does have a more depth to his quality because Heston is playing Heston pretty much in any role that he plays. Right, he's this big upfront, chest out, leading man stereotype. But yeah, Franciscans, he just, when he crawls out of the spaceship, you're just like, oh, okay. Well, yeah. I see what you're doing here.
Like, not subtle, guys, but
not at all.
Go along.
Yeah. But oh man, what a wacky film. What a whacked out movie for a second for the second of the series. It's just nuts. But I really enjoy this idea of this religious death cult. It is so, again, that's what these movies do is they really hold a mirror up to us. And so when they recreate the church scenes at the end where they're singing the hymns to the bomb, and of course at the time, when is this 1970, right? The whole idea of nuclear war, the whole idea of, we're still in America, still fighting in Vietnam. And so, there's a lot of there's the obvious anti-war protest by the chimpanzees in here. And so, again, just really bracing modern society, just pushing up against it and saying, you are worshiping, this is a death cult and this is what happens.
They're worshiping the bomb. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you take off your mask, what's underneath? It's ugly. It's terrifying.
Skinlessness.
It's skinless. Yeah. So it really works, and for whacked out it works on the social commentary.
I liked having the contrast of the underground people who, had, because actually before watching this, I have to say, I've been working in the background on this novel for ages about this culture where some stayed above ground and some stayed underground. And the ones that above ground did not go dumb or anything like that. But the ones underground are forced into advancing more because they have to be able to survive in this environment. And so this is maybe why I love this film a lot more than a lot of people seem to. It's just so weird, and it ends with the entire world exploding. What's not to like?
Right. And it has a kind of wackiness too, because I think they were not prepared to make a sequel, and the studio pushed them so hard that they're like, okay, fuck it, right? Let's just go. Let's just do this and see how far we can take this storyline. So it's a really special film in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in this, you can also really see, I was talking before about the filmmaking style of the genre of Western TV films. And you can really see that in this movie as well, in terms of the horse chases and the carriage escapes and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at some point, I had this feeling that I was just watching an extended Star Trek, the original series. It was just like an extended episode of that. It felt that visually it read very similar to how they were making those shows at the time as well. Just the quality of the film stock and, the set
I have to
design.
say the best episodes of the live action TV shows reminded me of Star Trek.
Okay, nice. So very funny. Go see it. Like, definitely, take a couple edibles and watch this movie because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
You can watch this one when you're punchy with friends.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so that brings us to the third movie in the series, which is actually my favorite movie in the original series, 1971's Escape from the Planet. So this is directed by Don Taylor, and I think, first of all, they solved the problem with they're like, by the way, while all this stuff was going on underground, Cornelius and Zira somehow pulled up and fixed the human rocket ship from the future and took off in it. Don't worry about it. It happened.
Right.
Well, they have a random scientist character with them who, I guess, figured that
who then
out.
dies. Yeah.
Right. Who then promptly dies. Killed by a
gorilla.
A non-evolved gorilla. Yeah. But it's a roller coaster like the previous film, a roller coaster in tone, but this is a much more cohesive version of that with some of, in my opinion, some of the deepest philosophical discussion in the entire series, and quite the twist, dark ending of its own.
Yeah, very, very dark ending. And I agree with you. I think it's got the most, it's the least gonzo of the movies for sure. And
but you still get like a shopping sequence, and then you get a baby killed at the end, but not the talking baby. So it's just that poor other mother gorilla's baby who was switched.
Right. And at some point, this is a bit of a love story between Cornelius and Zira. It's very sweet, and it has a kind of a rom-com style from that age as well. A kind of Breakfast at Tiffany's, singing in the rain. I don't know, just this idea of you're on the king and I, you're on this whirlwind of adventure and drama. And publicity. Yeah, absolutely. The party scene in the hotel is wild, and watching all the humans act like chimps, on the little toys that they've gotten there. And one
the
of
court scenes,
Yeah, of course, which mirror the original, for the original movies with their tribunal kind of thing, I love that this presidential, commission has such gravity and weight. How dare you question a presidential commission? It's wild.
So I see you wrote here tropey ending. You weren't a fan of the ending?
No, I didn't mean it in a bad way.
Okay.
I mean it in a way of both of our primary characters die in this very sort of tropey way. Did Cornelius have to be shot? Did Zira? I mean, the thing with Zira getting shot kind of makes sense given the moment, but the whole idea that all of our main characters die in these very dramatic ways, falling
except
off.
The miracle infant in the circus. Yeah,
and it just is a very overly dramatic sort of thing and then Zira crawling up to Cornelius's body.
Yeah,
but you're right. It's really dark, and shooting the baby was like wow. But again, they pulled. Go ahead.
I was to say, I was also, after the last two endings, I was like, how are they going to live up to the endings to the last two movies? I was like, oh, here we go. Yep. So I started to really look forward to the dark, cynical endings of each of these films.
And that's what makes these films so iconic is that they're not willing. They'll give you convention, but in the middle of convention, they will completely surprise you and completely upend your expectations. And that's really great. And that they brought in Ricardo Montalban for this movie. So I love that man. I love that man's acting, his voicing and his intonation. He's just so great. And for him to have smuggled the baby out like that, what a perfect ending. What a perfect way.
Yeah, he was a good bridge to the next film, but then I was mad that he died.
Yeah. So this is where my film watching ended. I wasn't able to get Conquest and Battle done, but I did watch I made sure I watched the documentary, and so what they did and how they did it and the themes of the other two. I think Escape is really unique because it's able to give, it's able to take the universe and expand it in a way that there was no way to see or predict prior to it, right?
Right.
Because it gives us their baby, it gives us Caesar, and that moment, that this storyline opens up these possibilities, not only for those original films, but also gives a seed for all these future iterations of the Apes franchise. So we can get the modern movies with, if we didn't have that central character of Caesar, I don't think you could make more ape movies, right? You really need the embodiment of this and this oppositional figure who is saying, ape shall not kill ape. We are going to live and have a society that is better, that is different. We're going to strive for something greater. And then that's a challenge. That's a struggle to be able to execute that when the circumstances change and your values are being tested. Your societal norms are being tested by circumstances that are unforeseen, like a spaceman coming from the past, right?
Yeah, so the next film was kind of the darkest in tone, which is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes in 1972, directed by J. Lee Thompson. He also directed the final film, by the way. It dragged for me a little bit, this one, but it is a lot of people's favorite, and I do appreciate it as a political statement.
Right.
It's interesting because they did cover in the documentary how they changed the ending. That at first it was going to be a darker ending, and that didn't test well. So they were like, "Oh well, actually," because they were like, it was going to be, you all got your weapons and fuck the humans and rise up.
Right.
And then they changed it to a voiceover of, "So now you can put down your weapons and we can all live in peace," until cut to Battle of the Planet of the Apes, the final film in the original series in 1973. And this one didn't have Den anymore, the writer. He dropped out due to illness. And so it was written by John William and Joyce Hopper Corrington. And Battle winds up being the punching bag of the series. But I think it does a couple things well. First of all, it jumps forward in time. So it's this sort of linking film because the entire series ends up being a time loop, basically.
Right.
And so Battle's kind of in the middle of this time loop, wrapping back around to the beginning. Although there's this ambiguous ending where you don't know. We have human kids and ape kids together learning, and then a statue of Caesar, who is the one who rises up in the final films and leads the apes to independence. There's a statue of him with a tear rolling down his face, which all this goes directly into the new Kingdom of the Apes movie, which is about the legacy of that version of Caesar. So it's interesting, the parallels between this final film and kind of the new film.
And, at this time, what is this? This is 73. We are in America, we're right in the middle. We're struggling with civil rights and questions of civil rights and laws and Birmingham and King and X and, all of this stuff. And so then to put forward the storyline of two different kinds of people, right? Two different kinds of societies trying to live together. It puts that question, center into the film. Can apes and humans live together? Can, blacks and whites live together? And I'm not equating, a black or a white human being to, any particular ape. I'm just saying,
that was obviously the questions that they were addressing.
Right. And just saying, okay, can these two, outwardly apparent? Because in the movies, in the ape movies, the apes are a people, right? They are a society with language and culture and norms and values, right? So so can two different seeming societies coexist? And how do we do that? And I think the film really draws a big circle around that and highlights the questions.
And it brings back the underground telepaths, which are personal favorite again. But I like, it shows them also in development. Yeah, it asks all these questions. It lays out, and maybe we're not having the exact same conversations about race today, but
Mhm.
we are having different versions of the same conversations.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
where I think, which is why I've talked to a bunch of people now who have gone back and started watching the original films because just because they see people gushing about them because they're
Mhm.
watching because of the new one, but also it's just they are timeless, their themes.
Yeah. Right. It's something I wanted to mention too about the conquest is this idea of and this is a concept that I'm only dimly aware of, so I don't mean to speak authoritatively about it. I'm just sort of aware of it. This idea of the master's tools, and that and so the ending of Conquest really has that, which is we have guns now, we have knowledge, and are we going to use those tools to persecute those who persecuted us?
Mm-hmm.
And are we going to do something different? Or are we going to use the master's tools? Because one of the things that the tools of the master do to you as the wielder is they
Mm-hmm.
corrupt your soul. They do moral harm to you as a human being. And so even though, the ending was the ending, I think they hit on something which is really important is how do we find mercy and how do we find space when we have been so wronged and so persecuted? It's a challenging question. And for as gonzo as these two movies are, they dive really deep into these very difficult questions of what it is to be a human being and how do we find social justice? Where
Yeah.
is justice?
Yeah, and as I said, there's two TV series actually. There's a one season live action series, 14 episodes in 74, and then a one season animated series, 13 episodes in 75. And
Mhm.
I enjoyed them in the sense that I wasn't ready to be done with the movies, and so they're like extensions of that. Especially the first one, we have Roddy McDowall back, and he's playing Galen, and Galen is actually my favorite Roddy McDowall role because he's a sassy ape.
Okay.
He's quite different from the other two. But this series is kind of a mess, and without Arthur Jacobs, the producer, you
Hmm.
can feel the difference in it. Although
Right.
sometimes, like I said, the best episodes felt like Star Trek, and
Right.
it ends awkwardly. They obviously weren't planning on it being over, but there is a sort of ending. Um, and the animated one, it's my lowest ranking of them all, but it's interesting that it's remixes the book, the movies, and the TV show in terms of like
Okay.
the setting and the characters. So that's for free on YouTube if anyone wants to watch.
Very
Um,
cool.
and then the era came to a close with that documentary we've been talking about. So
Yeah.
super cool to see all of like basically all the cast members and key crew members coming back.
I
And
would say anybody who's listening to this and is like, no way can I go back and watch, 5 films. Maybe I'll watch the original or whatever. And there's no way I'm going to get the TV show or anything like that. At a minimum, go see Behind the Planet of the Apes
right.
documentary. It
I
is
think you can watch it
really
without the rest. Yeah.
totally, and I think it does a really good job of pulling the essential things from each of the movies and explaining the core themes and
Hmm.
putting them forward. You had even said this to me, which is, make get the doc because it does it does this very function, and
Hmm.
I really am glad you encouraged me to watch it because it put the movies into a whole new perspective for me, both from the Gonzo production through to these deeper themes, and
Right.
it's a 2-hour documentary, so it's
Yeah.
very watchable, and
Hmm.
it's really well produced. Like they
Yeah.
really pull some great archival material. They show some of the original trailers for
Yeah.
how they excited audiences. It was I'm
Hosted by
really
Roddy
pleased.
McDowell. What's not to
So
love?
good
Yeah, I
on the
guess he.
Fox
Yeah.
Ranch.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a nice. I'm really glad that he was able to make that before he passed away because it's a really great close to that original era.
yeah, for sure.
Did you watch the Tim Burton reboot?
I think I must. Was that the one with Mark Wahlberg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I did. And then that's where I was kind of like,
Yeah.
I didn't have what I always loved about the originals, like I said, was that there is a biting sarcasm and a
Right.
social commentary to them. And I didn't get that vibe
Yeah.
from the Burton film. And
Yeah. No, that one completely missed the mark. Although visually, it's great.
wait, no, but maybe I don't even think maybe I watched the next round of movies.
The one with James Franco is
I
in
think
Rise.
yeah, that's the one I must have watched and then bounced off of. And then probably I went back to peep at the Burton one, and when I saw Mark Wahlberg with the chimpanzee in a spaceship, I was like, nope, I'm out. This is not for me. I couldn't do it. So I think it was the next round that I at least watched the whole movie and was like, oh, okay, fine. But
I don't dislike it as much as a lot of people, but I will only recommend it to completionists. The only thing I recommend less than that is the animated series.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, so Logan and I will be discussing the reboot trilogy that was released in 2011, 14, and 17. Just though to rattle off a few tie-ins for that, for anyone who's curious, I really found my watching of especially the latter two in that trilogy to be enhanced by the tie-in comics. So there's tie-in comics from both Boom and Marvel. I especially like the Marvel ones, although I know some other people prefer the Boom ones. You can find them all online or Marvel Unlimited, which I happen to have. And just a note that the comics history for this is so rich, especially connected to the original series. And actually, Marvel just started a new comic series tied to the original chronology, which I haven't started yet, but yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so this was another one. It was owned by Fox. So again, when just like X-Men and Fantastic Four, when Marvel bought Fox, they acquired this. There's been some other books that I want to read. Like there's a game called Last Frontier I'd like to play, like a branching story game where you can choose whether apes win, humans win, or they live in peace. There were some shorts that I did watch that lead into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. If Variety published them, if you want to look them up, you can Google them. And also, I really want to read this book called Firestorm, which is the backstory of Koba, who's he's the main antagonist of the second film. And there's also another book I'd like to read called Caesar's Story, which is this entire trilogy through Maurice, the orangutan's character. So lots of tie-in stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, David, do you think you might get into the new movies at all? You think you might give them another try? You're just like, nah, I just prefer to preserve the memory.
I gave the newest one a quick peep, and it didn't grab me. And I know that you really enjoyed it, and I certainly it just had too much modern sensibility filmmaking in it for me. And so I wasn't the CGI looked great, and no shade or anything like that. It just wasn't something that excited me. And again, it may be just because I'm stuck in a nostalgia trap with these old movies. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see where they go. I'm not.
You're gonna finish watching Battle or Conquest and Battle?
I am not sure. I may on high speed. We'll see. I'm trying to do a bunch of work for Alien, and then I still have these Dune plans, and so that's. But of course, as we're talking about Lorehounds' upcoming programming schedules as well, we have House of the Dragon, which is a huge topic. And then we've got The Bear and some other things coming down the pipe. So I'm a little concerned that I don't think I'll be able to finish them. I might, though. We'll see.
Yeah. And would you watch, is this a series that you would watch with your daughter?
I would gladly watch it with my daughter.
Do you think she would watch it?
No, I don't think so, because she is a very empathetic person and is really affected by dramatic tension. And she will, she can watch documentaries about orcas eating seals and lions chasing, wildebeest and all kinds of stuff. No problem there. And she loves science stuff, so Magic School Bus and these kinds of things. She's also very into fashions, and she's watching these other cartoons about what is it, Fashion High or something like that. It's
Okay.
terrifying.
Hey,
Which has a lot of dramatic tension, but
Yeah.
whatever. She's more into the fashion of it. There's no way at this age in her life, there's no way that I could get her to sit down and watch any of these. Fingers crossed, maybe when she's a bit older and has grown through some of this ability, and develop some more facility in terms of integrating her emotional responses. It'd be fun. I certainly would love to show her the original film. I'd love to see what a kid of this generation makes of Charlton Heston,
Right.
a shirtless Charlton Heston running around.
Right.
But I don't think there's no way I could convince her right now to watch them. She'd run screaming from the room.
Okay. Fair enough. Any final thoughts on this series before we jump to my conversation with Logan?
I would say, well, I already gave a plug for the documentary, but I would definitely say if you've got a moment in your film watching, you, dear listener, if you've got a moment in your TV and film watching schedule, definitely go back and see the original. It's such an iconic film. It does so many interesting things in terms of sound design, and put yourself in 1968 headspace in a movie a little bit to catch the twists and the vast the vistas and the way that they built Ape City. There is a lot to say for this movie, even though it's a shirtless Charlton Heston. There is some, and a lot of our modern, visual storytelling this is one of our texts, right? This is one of the pieces that we draw on either directly or indirectly. So I think it's always good to go back to these original sources. It is an original story, from Boole's, point of view of writing that. It does a lot of original things, and I think it's always good to do that. And damn, for anything, just the soundtrack of this thing is exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does keep up with the new ones, and they mix them together. All
So
right.
good.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Thank you so much for talking through the old stuff with me.
My pleasure.
Listeners, if you just hang tight for a minute, we'll be right back after the break with my discussion about the new films, especially Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, with Logan.
What will he find out there, Doctor?
His destiny.
Hi, later editor Elysia checking in. Funny story. Logan and I had a bit of a sound issue recording this conversation, and we assumed it was his mic. But when I got the audio to edit, it's clear that it was actually my mic that was the problem. So sorry, Logan, you sound great, and apologies to listeners for the quality of my mic in this section. But I did really enjoy this conversation, and I hope you will as well.
What a wonderful day! What a wonderful day! Are we thankful for the words of Caesar? We are thankful. Do we bend our heads? We bend. Say his words. Say his words! What a wonderful day!
I am joined now by Logan, who's also seen the entire original series, but also the TV show and the new series as well. So, spoilers, Planet of the Apes films and shows, including the 4 new films, especially, of course, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So, welcome, Logan. Thank you for joining to talk about this series of simian-based dystopian futures. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You were actually the person I was copying when I started this whole Watch Everything Apes. Now, you and I, of course, we know each other through the Academy of Death Racers. Can you explain a little bit about what that is for people who don't know yet?
So, the Academy of Death Racers were a group of film watchers who tried to watch the Oscar nominees every year. We watch all of them. We also host our own film festival every year, and it's just a giant film-loving community.
Yeah, basically. And we are people who like to check off lists. So I know this is kind of a silly question, but What made you decide to do this deep dive and watch all the films?
Probably back when I saw the first trailer for Kingdom. The franchise was never one that really like stood out to me,
Okay.
but the trailer for Kingdom really had some visuals that I really enjoyed, and I've always admired the technicality of the films from the sidelines, but I had always heard my grandparents talk about the original Planet of the Apes. So I finally decided, hey, why don't I sit down, watch all these suckers,
Yeah.
and get ready for Kingdom.
And now that you've seen them all, where does the franchise rank amongst your favorite franchises?
I have a lot of nostalgia for this one now. It's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty chaotic, but it's overall the themes are way more solid than some franchises around. It does a really good job of holding tight to the sci-fi aspect, which is something that franchises this old will just eventually lose and devolve into some chaotic, outer space nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But this one stays really grounded to earth and still, even now with Kingdom, seems somewhat plausible.
Yeah. But yeah, especially the new series is quite cohesive. It really feels like a progression. I asked you to rank all the things. So we've seen, I just went through, the listeners will have just heard me go through with David, the everything that was released. And you've seen it all except the animated series, I think?
Correct.
Okay. So what are your rankings of the entire Planet of the Apes pantheon of film and television?
So the original film for me is top of the line. There's nothing quite like, well, we said spoilers, so there's nothing quite like that end shot when we see the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand and we find out that he's actually been on Earth the entire time. It really adds this weird moral humanity to it that you kind of feel for the guy at the end. Kingdom is my second because it's just so freaking good. I usually am a person who fights against long run times, but this is the first one in quite a while that I felt really justified its own runtime. Right. There's just so much with the characters, and you can see that it's building on the legacy of the most recent three, while also kind of honoring everything else before it and prepping for the future. So it's kind of, I don't know, an all-in-one type thing.
Right, I agree.
After that, I'd say Conquest and Escape. Both of those are they're relatively interchangeable for me. I'm a huge fan of Roddy McDowall now.
Yeah, me too.
That guy, I mean, he played 3 different apes over the course of the franchise, and
quite different ones too.
Yes, and every time he played one, I was excited to see it. The new trilogy, they're all pretty solid. I have them ranked as Rise, Dawn, and then War, because Rise had a lot more of the kind of humanity things, whereas Dawn and War kind of started to get into the weird societal stuff that the franchise is known for, where it's humans versus apes. Then, I mean, the live action series is that sure is a serialized piece of TV, because
sure does have
14
actors
episodes and there's 14 episodes and it's not really a cohesive story, but somehow still really fun, and like it's got the life lesson-y stuff that's pretty reminiscent of shows from back then.
Can I ask though, because I asked myself this, I also quite enjoyed it, but did I enjoy it as an extension of what came before rather than I would have enjoyed it on its own?
That's the hard part for me, I
Because,
think.
like, I didn't want the party to be over with the films, you know?
Yeah, and I think it also helps that Roddy came back
Mm-hmm.
to play Galen
Yeah, immensely.
after he had already played Cornelius and
I cannot
Caesar.
tell you the two humans' names in that TV show, but I know
No.
Galen.
I want to say one's Burke,
Yeah.
and I only watched the show like 2 months ago, and I can barely remember the other two leads. So that does say something, but I also don't remember the villain.
Yeah,
Like
it was
I remember it was one of the gorillas, but I don't remember
Urkel.
his name. Yeah, there you go. But you had Galen,
Mm-hmm.
and you had his mentors, I
Yeah,
guess.
there are a
But
couple like
like,
solid episodes on their own, and then others that were like,
yes, there was one in particular that was Galen and his love interest and her being a surgeon, and it was really weird.
I actually
There's
thought
some
that was
weird
one of the
stuff in
better
there.
episodes.
I wouldn't say that overall it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt so out of
Mm-hmm.
place in comparison to the rest of the series and then the franchise as a
You have
whole.
two more from the series below that?
Yeah, so um, after the live action series, I put Battle, which again, enjoyed Battle. Beneath is where things get weird. You have weird telekinetic
Mm-hmm.
humans, and by the end, a nuke gets launched,
Yes,
and
it's insane.
you can tell that that was a film released in 1970
Mm-hmm.
because it very much screams Red Scare,
Mm-hmm.
the entire
Mm-hmm.
film. Um,
And we learned in the documentary that it was Charlton Heston's idea to do that because he thought he would stop the movies.
that's, yeah, 2 was only so absolutely insane because Heston didn't want to return.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he magically disappeared throughout the entirety of the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I put the Behind the Planet of the Apes documentary, and it was fine. I just thought it focused too much on the original film and needed to focus a little bit on the others as well.
Oh, I thought as
I
a
didn't think it
Roddy
covered them
McDowell
enough,
stan,
but
you would like it.
yeah, I. It also didn't help that the quality I watched was rough.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a recording of a VHS of a recording.
Yeah.
It was very, very grainy. Um, but I loved watching the technicality of making the apes come to
Uh-huh.
life. Because like nowadays it's CGI. Like it's always
Yeah.
CGI when you look at anything anymore. It's very, very rare that it's practical anything. And so to see them making the practical apes was just so freaking cool. And I really wish we still did stuff like that
Yeah.
because the quality of those films, while yes, you can always tell it's a person in a suit,
Mm-hmm.
but like I still always felt like they were apes. Um, and it's something that like this franchise manages to do better than so many others.
And I have to say, I don't disagree with your last place going to the Tim Burton one, but um, one thing they did well was those apes looked really good.
They did. I will give them that. That's about the only thing I will give them.
Why do you think the reboot didn't work?
Um, God, there's a lot of reasons. Um, it's you take all of the kind of iconic pieces of the franchise before it. Um, so I mean, the original 5 films, the live action show, um, and I guess the animated series, which I didn't watch in this binge, but
Mm-hmm.
you take those things and it felt like a lot of the love and care for the characters and the world they got built kind of just got tossed to the side for Tim Burton's typical,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Tim Burtonness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like, it's not like I dislike his stuff, but this one personally, it didn't feel like it should have been his vibe. It shouldn't have been a Tim Burton film while also being Planet of the Apes. It needed to be Planet of the Apes with a Tim Burton like spice. I don't know.
Okay, no, yeah, I completely agree. Didn't rank high for me either. um, why not the cartoon? Was that a step too far, or like the reviews too bad?
It looked rough. I watched I don't know if it was like an official like trailer for it or like commercial for it, but I did watch one and I thought it was pretty rough, and which is weird because I'm such a big animation guy,
Mm-hmm.
but that one just kind of screamed that it wasn't going to be any good, and so I steered clear.
Okay. All right. So my rankings. So I did go and like read all of the comics associated with the new reboot timeline,
Okay.
and that's not included in here. But I really enjoyed doing that and recommend it. I actually like the one by Marvel best, even better than the ones from Boom. But yeah,
Did you know that there's actually one releasing right now?
linked to the original timeline. Yeah,
Yes. There's only like 3 issues out or
yeah,
something right now. I happened to look at it the other day.
yeah. Every time I open Marvel, they're like, "Don't you want this?" I'm like, "No, I'm reading the old comics."
You're listening to my every word.
I mean, to be fair, I was reading other Planet of the Apes comics there.
Fair enough.
But okay, but of the on-screen stuff, my number one goes to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and yeah, we're going to talk about why. But I thought that it really brought together all the best aspects of this IP, and then added something new. So yeah, I really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
My number two is the Behind the Planet of the Apes documentary. I I thought that it did have a good coverage of touching on everything. It did focus a lot on the first one, but I learned something interesting about every single film. So, and I love Roddy McDowell, and it was just like it answered questions that I had, and then also just gave me insights into filmmaking that I've been thinking about since I watched it. So I really liked it. Um, my next in the list is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and I think it's just because it felt so fresh. Also, when it came out, and then also when I rewatched it recently, I just like that. I love science, and I love when they make an attempt to use science well.
Yes.
Would have been better without James Franco as a scientist. Okay, you gave me John Lithgow, so I'll forgive you.
Well, and that's another thing for me personally. I mean, my degree is in biology education,
Mm-hmm.
so like I have the science background, and so them even halfway attempt like some of the
Yeah.
science they mention in the new trilogy is actually genuine.
Yeah, no, they're really
And then then it devolves into the little bit of the sci-fi,
mm-hmm.
but the stuff is like the base is real.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's done well.
Yeah, I gotta appreciate that. So my favorite of the original trilogy, and number 4 for me, is Escape from the Planet of the Apes. For me, it's just so the reason why I don't have the original so high is definitely just like for personal reasons. I can recognize if I did not already know all of the twists and everything, it would blow my mind. But since I went in knowing that, it just I don't know. There's some stuff that I really love about it, and other stuff I just think some of the other films did better. And Escape from the Planet of the Apes gave me a little bit of everything. It gave me, first of all, the 2 best characters. I like that. Let's ditch those stupid humans. And yeah, we got comedy. We got like really moral quandary. We got twists galore. Action. It was just a bit of everything. So then next I have the original Planet of the Apes, followed by from the new trilogy, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I thought it was good, but I like it better actually after reading the comics. So I shouldn't have to do that though.
Yeah. It should be able to stand on its own.
Yeah. And it's not like the villains were not unrealistic, but they were just kind of frustrating, and I didn't get super invested in the characters. Yeah, and it was like in the original, the revolt felt earned. In the second one, it was like, I don't know. I didn't know what I was rooting for there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, so then I love Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I have it, you know, at number 7, so it's in the middle of the list, but it's just batshit crazy, and I love that about it. So, yeah, I like finished the film and I was buzzing and I was like kind of like jumping around the room. I'm like, how are they going to make another movie after that? Let alone 3 more.
Yeah.
So I was very excited in the new film to see underground people. Like, telepaths are coming.
I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to touch on it again soon.
Yeah. Or maybe we'll get to the whole plans. Okay, so my number 8 from the original was Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, it's just a good, solid uprising movie. One of the better made ones, I think. And then War for the Planet of the Apes from the new trilogy, and it's just basically it's not ranked higher because I hated the Harrelson character. I just found him too cartoonishly evil, and it undermined he had, well, I'm just going to make them work and never feed them or give them any water. Like, no, he would have been a more convincing villain if he had given them like dirty water and too little food, you know?
Yes. And there was also that weird, it was a little weird with that one that it felt like Woody Harrelson wasn't really allowed to be Woody Harrelson.
Okay. Elaborate?
They kind of shoehorned him into that cartoonish
Mm.
villain when I think he can play a villain much better
We've
than that
seen
on
it
his
for
own.
sure, yeah.
It's very interesting that he didn't feel as evil as normal.
Yeah, it just felt flat for me. But on the other hand, I loved Bad Ape, played by Steve Zahn.
Yes.
And I liked what they did with Nova in that one. I thought they handled the Nova thing well.
Yeah, that was cool.
And maybe in retrospect, I should have it a little higher, but the Harrelson thing, Okay, then Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which I don't dislike as much as other people. You know, the last one, the original series, it kind of wraps back around on the timeline to finish off that loop. So I appreciate it for that. And then under that Planet of the Apes TV series, I enjoyed it, but it didn't. You could tell that the creator of the original series had died, and now the new series was kind of watered down for television. It didn't have quite the nuance and emotional punch. And then Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes for all the reasons that you said. And then, the Return to the Planet of the Apes animated series. I didn't hate it, but it's last. It has its problems. There was some stuff I liked about it. There was a Kong crossover, and there was
Oh.
there's some pluses.
I mean, yeah. It was that weird era of Hanna-Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Everything absurdist, and
That's
the vibes on that one specifically reminded me of the old Aquaman series.
Yeah.
I think it was 68 or so.
I mean, if anyone's curious about it, it's free on YouTube, so check it out. It's not that bad. But yeah, so you and I both kind of ranked the prequel trilogy in the middle of the pack. How would you say overall you think it compares to the original series?
Overall, I mean, I think I gave all 3 of them an 8 out of 10. Like, I do enjoy the heck out of them, but they are so much less memorable. Like, even if the originals only had like certain moments that really stood out, those moments still really stand out. Whereas the new trilogy has moments that, sure, I kind of remember things being funny or like enjoying pieces of it, but I couldn't recount the exact scenes. Like, I love Bad Ape, super funny.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any specifics.
Yeah. Just the gag.
Yes, but like I kind of forgot about that until you just mentioned it. But like you look at oh god, is it Escape? I think Escape. When they're in the court and Cornelius is cracking jokes about Zira and kind of
Yeah,
you know
that's great.
um
That's
kind of
fun.
showing the sexism of the time, but like at the same time it was like funny and
Yeah.
it like
He was the
related
progressive
to
type.
yes, it kind of like related to the human
Mhm.
society of the time. So like there's just something about the characters from the originals that just stick out more to me.
Yeah. I mean, Weta, the company that did the VFX, they are the company created in New Zealand for Lord of the Rings. They are still the best in the biz, and they show it with every film, getting even better every time. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
they did all that work with Andy Serkis back when he did Gollum
Mm-hmm.
for Lord of the
Mm-hmm.
Rings. And then they brought him, they worked with him again to bring Caesar to
Yeah.
life.
What did you think of Caesar as a character and portrayal and all that?
In the most recent trilogy, I think Caesar is fully fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
We see his origins in Rise. We see him kind of trying still to like see the redeeming qualities of humanity in Dawn, and then a war is when he just says all hell break
Mm-hmm.
loose, and that's when Caesar really breaks, um, because there's no reason for him to want anything, and I think it's interesting how in anytime Caesar is ever mentioned after his deaths, no matter which timeline you're looking at, they always misconstrue things he said and did.
Wow.
And it seems like Caesar ends
Yeah.
up inevitably being the catalyst for a lot of different things.
Yeah. I mean, that's something handled well in the new film, in Kingdom, of course. Yeah, because it's very realistic, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a fan of Matt Reeves as a director? He was the director of the new prequel film.
Personally, yes. But also, I haven't seen a ton from Matt Reeves. Um, I've obviously seen the films he did for Planet of the
Mm-hmm.
Apes, and of course the Batman. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, who hasn't? Um, and I've of course Cloverfield as
Mm-hmm.
well. Um, but I think that's all I've seen from him. And his eye for stuff, especially with the apes, and I'll throw the Batman in there too. It's very, very cinematic,
Mm-hmm.
and attention to detail is always paid. But he also has a tendency to make things incredibly dark, and that really bugs me.
Mm.
But maybe that's a personal thing. But I do feel like his two Apes films were really dark, and there were scenes where I couldn't like see what was happening.
Yeah.
But again, maybe that's just a personal thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that he's incredible. But then emotionally, I find his films often don't go as deep as I want from the apes. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Batman, which I know makes me uncool or something. But I just I like um I like Josh Ball's has more pathos, I think.
I would argue the same
Mm.
at this point. I don't think before this I would have, but because let's be real, Wes Ball's previous credits are not great,
Josh Ball's.
considering his biggest thing was the Maze Runner
Yeah.
trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
which,
I only
as
watched the
someone who
first
read
one, but
those
it was
books,
okay.
those are abysmal.
I only watched the first one, but it was okay.
Yeah, like if they were standalone, sure, but as someone who read the books,
Mm,
oof.
okay.
But you can see he learned from his mistakes on Maze Runner.
Mm.
and he like actually built up something with Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how you would hope someone, improves over time. They see their mistakes, they improve them, they work to make things better.
Yeah.
And it seems like he really did with Kingdom.
Well, also we have to give some credit to the writer. Josh Friedman is a credited writer, although I know that Joshua also worked on it. But
Yeah.
so Josh Friedman's previous work, I think War of the Worlds, was very well written. I never saw the Black Dahlia, but this is all giving me hope for the Fantastic Four and Avatar 4, which he's writing both of.
Avatar, I don't know, I could care less, but I am incredibly excited for him to do Fantastic Four. I do think it's also interesting that he is tapped to write 3 incredibly well-known properties. Like he just did Kingdom, but he's also helmed to write Fantastic Four. He's also helmed for Avatar 4, but he's also helmed to write the next live-action Star Trek film.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, those are all huge franchises. And to have so few writing credits, or I shouldn't say so few film writing credits under his belt, that is very interesting to see that he's got 4 massive franchises.
Well, he hasn't missed
that
yet.
all want his writing.
Yeah, he hasn't.
So
knock on wood.
clearly he's got something that even if we haven't seen it as the world yet. Like somebody is seeing his writing and they know it's good.
Yeah. Well, you and I, not everyone will agree with us, but you and I both found Kingdom to be the number 1 in the new series. Number 2 for you overall, number 1 for me overall. So we're going to get into the film's plot, but what do you think makes it special for you, and where does it rank in your films of the year so far?
So, okay. Overall, on the year so far, Kingdom is like my number 2 film. Just below Challengers. As of right now, I'm also behind. I haven't watched a lot this year, but Kingdom is very much up there. I think a big one that helped me with this one was just the hype I had built myself for it.
Sure.
By watching all of the films and watching this series, and then I had like a month between when I finished and when it came out finally, and then throw in another week because life was busy. So I was really looking forward to it. It's the only Apes film I've seen in theaters. It takes a lot of the best aspects and builds on them. It establishes not a new timeline, but a new era, and kind of allows these new characters to shine while also honoring everything from the previous 3 films. Caesar is constantly referenced, and it really just like we finally see the buildup of a new protagonist. The last 3 films was the buildup of a different version of Caesar, and like we had seen Caesar before,
Right.
And so some of it felt like it was constantly a rehash, whereas this was like, hey, here's Noah. Like, we're no longer focusing on Caesar. Like, his influence is still there, but the film is not about Caesar.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that you said. It was also my number 2 of the year, my number 1 being Dune. But I also feel like it was built up it was like built off the back of the first 3 films, which I really appreciate. But it felt like there was a unique culture here. I really liked the Falconers. New take on the classic.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see that they had grown enough to domesticate their own animals.
Yes. Yeah, very true.
Like,
not just horses.
Previously in the original films, the apes were domesticated by humans.
Right, because all the cats and dogs died off, so...
Yeah, the cats and dogs died off in those, and then, they domesticated the monkeys instead, and now here we are, and, they've domesticated some of the birds and the horses, like always, because
Just because it looks
can't have
cool.
an Apes film without monkeys riding horses. Like,
It's crazy.
it just doesn't work. But it's very interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a good choice because birds are very cinematic. I love birds. They look good on screen. They're
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, the pacing just really worked for me. I know some people complained and found it slow at first, but I was hanging on every scene at the beginning. And the fact that they gave me time to hang out with this group of friends got me way more invested in everything that happened after that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That beginning really allows you to, like you said, get kind of attached, get invested in the characters. When I went and saw it, I saw it with my dad and my brother, who have seen no other
Okay.
Planet of the Apes films. Like, they both went in blind with me. They also had seen trailers, thought it looked interesting, agreed to go with me, like, that type of thing. And to see that they were also as hooked as I was in the beginning there really solidified how, like, well crafted it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they just nailed the action because it's not like, you're just hanging out getting bored in the beginning. That's what I thought from some reviews I read before I went. But I was, biting my nails through a lot of those scenes. They really, because also you've just met these characters. You don't know who can die. And then all of a sudden, you get a left hand swing from out of nowhere and knocks you out. And then you're like, wow, okay, this is. And I looked at my watch actually because I wondered. People said like, "Oh, it's two different movies," and like that. There was a review online that said that, or I think it was like Kermode and Mayo podcast. Anyway, they said that it was slow in the front half, and then all of a sudden it gets good in the second half. And when the fire happens and the village is being burned down, that's only 40 minutes in, so it's like a third of the way through.
Yeah. And you wouldn't even think that was a third.
Right.
Like, it feels like so much happens during that time. But it's because we see the stakes being set for Noah and his friends. Like,
right.
I mean, the loss of their village and the death of his father in front of him. Like, it's going to mess you up.
Yeah, and I thought that of these new Apes films, this was the first where the nuance of the morality finally lives up to the original. So, like, I love seeing how the big debates over May online. That means that it's raising questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the world feels real. It feels big. It feels like this story could go in any direction from here, but still, like, it's not straying from the originals. We'll call back to.
Yes.
There's callbacks we'll talk about.
And I think I'm going to bring one up now because I think one of the best callbacks is Raka. He's this wise orangutan. Like always, those orangutans were always kind of the wise ones in the original series, and this is the first time they really
I
brought
thought,
that back.
what's his? Sorry, I'm forgetting. Maurice, from the original trilogy was great too.
Yes. But it's that Raka was like, he kind of helped. He was like the plot device to kind of bridge the Caesar trilogy with the Noah trilogy, which I believe is still being considered a trilogy. But he really, it was cool seeing them use an orangutan again in order to kind of be the educator, be the sage, be the elder.
Right, true. Yeah. So in the plot, we get a prologue that ties the films together. First of all, I have to ask, you went with your dad and brother who hadn't watched it. Did they have any questions, or was the prologue enough for them to set the same stakes with the legacy of Caesar?
Yeah, I think the prologue was enough. I mean, of course they don't know the full background, but I mean, we see the burning of Caesar's corpse. Like, we see them have the funeral for Caesar. it shows that they honored him enough to do that.
Right.
You know, and of course it cuts kind of dramatically to years later, but it is a very nice prologue that kind of brings us right into these new films and shows like the apes of Caesar's time respected him enough, and then they moved into the future where Caesar is still respected hundreds of years after his death.
Mm-hmm. But I noticed the prologue focuses especially on his more peaceful side, but of course there was the aggressive side too. He did start an uprising and perpetuated it.
We definitely just see, you know, he's dead, but he's at peace.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get to see the angry Caesar, the one who was fighting against humans constantly. You know, the ones who ripped away his, you know, basically adoptive father, the scientist, you know, and like all these things. But it really just shows the quote unquote good side of Caesar. And like, I have a feeling the more aggressive nature of Caesar is going to come back and bite some of these apes in the future films.
Yeah. Well, I always think of it as, so my big pet peeve with these apes films, it dates back to the original book, is that they misstereotype them. So like the chimps are the most aggressive ones, and the gorillas should be, I don't know, like the political leaders, and the orangutans are the smart ones. They should be teachers. And then they have the bonobos who, when they show up, they make them the most evil villains. What is going on? The bonobos are the ones in real life who just like to have sex and hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also very weird that like all these years later, and we still don't see much variation in the apes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are more than a handful of species of apes. What is going on here?
This is true.
Like, why don't we ever have like baboons?
Yeah.
Like, we could have, you know, a Planet of the Apes version of Rafiki from Lion King. Like, we could have a crazy old ape. Like,
well, that was a plus.
It's very strange.
That was a plus of the Tim Burton one, is there was a little more variety in the apes.
Very much.
Visually, that movie was great. It was just, you know, it missed the point.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to recap the film one section at a time with the help of an excellent writer from Wikipedia who saved me a lot of time and wrote this very well. Thank you so much. And then we'll pause and discuss each portion of the plot. So, many generations after Caesar's death, apes have established numerous clans, while most humans have become feral and caveman-esque. Noah, a chimpanzee from a falconry practicing clan, prepares for a coming-of-age ceremony by collecting eagle eggs with his friends Anaya and Suna. However, a human scavenger follows Noah home and inadvertently cracks his egg during a scuffle before fleeing. While searching for a replacement egg, Noah encounters a group of ape raiders using electric weapons. As Noah hides from them, the apes follow his horse back to his clan. Noah hurries home to find his village burning. The raider leader Silva kills Noah's father before dropping Noah from a high platform. So, yeah. Whew.
And that's all just within the first, like you said, the village is burning at roughly 40 minutes in. Like, that's rough.
The egg breaking thing like broke my heart. And then it's like, well, the egg breaking thing, you realize that's nothing when suddenly the village is burning.
Yes. It, the whole ritual of them like showing that they have the ability to like be independent, they're old enough, mature enough to go and protect life is something that I find kind of cool. It's like, you know, it's kind of this alternative to turning 18 here in the US. Like, you turn 18, you're considered an adult, you're able to become a legal guardian,
right?
Like if you were to have a child, and you know, this kind of, you know, it kind of parallels that sort of, to the extent of these guys go get the eggs, they protect them, but they always leave one remaining.
Yes, I love that
They
detail.
always leave one egg in order to keep the bird population going.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that they have like studied these birds. They're not just doing this willy-nilly.
Mhm.
Like, they know how to protect the birds. They know how to train them at this point. And so it's really cool to see them kind of honor the birds while also using them in a way that didn't seem harmful at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seemed like it was stuff the birds wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. The birds, as we could see from Eagle's Son, the birds very much have wills of their own. And I also like how they get us feeling like, oh, we are the apes. The apes are our protagonists. And what's that filthy human doing breaking eggs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we get our Mufasa moment.
Yeah. As soon as the fight started,
Mm-hmm.
up there, before that, but as soon as Noah starts climbing,
Right.
I knew his father was dead.
Yeah.
Like, and you can see it coming from a mile away,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what? Still heartbreaking.
Yeah. It was also, I think both the parents were tropes, but they were elevated tropes. You know, they
Yes.
have real humanity.
Very much.
Real
Very
ape
much, yes.
man. Anyway. Moving on. Left for dead, Noah awakens, discovering that his clan has been abducted. He buries his father and sets out to rescue his clan. On his journey, he is joined by Raka, an orangutan who tells Noah about Caesar's teachings. The apes notice they are being followed by the human scavenger. Raka offers her food and a blanket, naming her Nova. When the trio encounters a group of feral humans, Silva's raiders suddenly attack. Noah and Raka rescue Nova, who, to their surprise, can speak. She reveals that her name is May, and that the raiders took Noah's clan to a beachfront settlement outside an old human vault. As they cross a bridge on their way to the settlement, they are ambushed by Silva. In the ensuing fight, Raka saves May from drowning but is swept away by the rapids. Noah and May are captured and taken to the Apes settlement. So yeah, that brushes over quite a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Raka is dead?
That's a tough one. He was in the water for a while. He was in the water for a long while before he got swept away.
Mm-hmm.
I have a strange feeling he's not dead, though.
Did you hear this soundbite at the end of the credits?
I did. I have a feeling he's going to return somehow.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is it's some random clan that has also been kind of worshipping Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of find Raka and they realize he has similar beliefs,
Right.
and they save him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it would be fun, weird sci-fi if we turned Raka into like a cyborg ape because he, like, I don't know, broke an arm or something and lost it.
Oh,
in
what
the
if he's
river?
with the humans underground?
That's also the other possibility. It wouldn't surprise me if we found a group of humans that are sympathetic to the apes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, like, we see May slowly develop that over the film.
Right.
Kind of.
Maybe.
There's some twists there, but you do kind of see it that at times she is sympathetic to them, specifically Noah and Raka. But to see that as it played out,
Yeah.
it worked. But I think it's totally possible Raka comes back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it was kind of cruel to take Rocco away, but I liked how they handled the Nova naming thing, you know, where it's, because we saw Nova get named in War of the Planet of the Apes because she had this Chevy Nova, what do you call them? The thing that you put on your car. The decal or no?
Yeah.
Anyway.
The whatever it's called.
Yes. Spoiler something else. Anyway, sorry. Not a car person, don't own a car. But yeah, and so this Raka says, we call her Nova because we call them all Nova. It's tradition.
And it's very funny that his comment there just kind of makes fun of the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
Because like how many living things have been called Nova in the history of the Planet of the Apes franchise? Like, and that goes back to the original film.
Right. You know what I find the most offensive use of Nova is not surprisingly, the Tim Burton film. When they gave Nova to an obnoxious ape who hated humans. Like, what are you doing? You can't just throw the name in there, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it like Nova in the original film is like meant to kind of be a strong woman who like yes, she's not smart, but like she knows how to like kind of play the apes, and she got our protagonist on her side, and like she has some smarts to her even though she can't speak, and like she may not have the scientific know-how of the astronaut, but like she's still pretty smart. And then as she goes, and then the future Novas we see all are pretty intelligent and strong people until Tim Burton. But
in the book, his wife, his partner, whatever, she could speak or learn to speak. I haven't read the book yet. I have a copy now. Gonna do it eventually. The reading list is long.
Same here.
I loved that. I was thinking for a lot of the beginning of the movie, like, oh, we're not going to get that scene that I assumed we're going to get where they chase down a pack of feral humans. And then we finally get it. But first there was such a cool random why not twist with there's zebras there.
Yes. But what I realized, and it took me a couple days after watching Kingdom to realize this, they specifically show zebras in, I think, Rise and Dawn. So I really do think they were trying to allude to the fact that zebras were going to be part of the wild. Was that super intentional, or did the writers of Kingdom find that and play off of it? I don't know. But it does connect now.
I like that.
Whether it was originally intended that way or not, but it does.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk later about another Easter egg that seems to have been planted that's got to pay off some point. Okay, but moving on with the synopsis. Noah reunites with his clan and is introduced to the apes' self-proclaimed king, Proximus Caesar. Proximus has enslaved other clans, forcing them to work on opening the vault so he can access the human technology locked inside. Proximus invites Noah to dinner along with May and Trevathan, a human prisoner who's teaching Proximus about the old human world. Proximus believes that Noah's intelligence could help open the vault and warns him that May only has her own agenda. Noah confronts May, demanding the truth in exchange for his help. May discloses knowledge of a hidden entrance to the vault and says that a mysterious, quote-unquote, book capable of restoring speech to humanity is inside. Noah agrees to help her enter the vault, hoping to destroy Proximus's settlement and lead his clan back home. Noah, May, Suna, and Anaya secretly plant explosives around the levee that surrounds the settlement. Trevathan catches them and intends to warn Proximus, but May kills him. Yeah, that was quite the move. Chilling to watch her do that, but also you're kind of rooting for it at the same time.
Yeah, there was part of me that was thinking, oh, he's going to just stand there, he's going to crack some jokes, and then he's going to join them. And then it became, I'm going to go tell Proximus. And we just see May take action, and she does not hesitate. I mean, she kills him in cold blood right then and there.
Yeah. She's a little assassin.
Really, like, yeah, that kill was not expected. I figured she'd choke him a little bit and then throw him off the side. But no, she killed him with her bare hands, and then they got rid of the body.
And well, I don't know how much smaller she is. She's clearly younger, but she just kind of latched onto him like a monkey, ironically. I did not, I mean, I recognized, of course, William H. Macy, but he looks so different with those fake teeth.
Yes. He's one of those actors that just randomly pops up in things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, hey, it's that guy.
Right.
And he's always around. It's funny. I was looking at his credits, and he's, got over 100 films and whatnot.
Yeah. He was great. He's always great. It was did you feel like at all like he was right in any way? How did you feel about him? He was complex.
Yes and no. I mean, he had the humanity of self-preservation. I mean, you could tell he was like trying to help May, but at the end of the day, he didn't care about anybody but himself.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make sure that he lived long enough to escape Proximus. And it seemed like helping Proximus was the best way for him to eventually be released from like imprisonment, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So it's easy to kind of empathize with that when he's just trying to like protect himself. But at the same time, some of his actions were in opposition to the protagonists who we grew to love, and then he came, so he needed to die.
I love the idea that if Proximus came to our time, and he would love the existence of the TikTok trend asking how often you think about the Roman Empire.
Roman Empire?
It's like, I'm never not thinking about it.
It's so good.
I mean, but it makes sense. And you can see how that is reflected in the type of society that he's building.
Oh, very clearly, yeah.
So the group enters the vault, which is a military bunker housing a stockpile of weapons and May's quote-unquote book, which is actually a deciphering key for a satellite. The apes discover old picture books depicting humans as the once dominant species in apes in cages at a zoo. As the group makes their way out of the bunker, they are confronted by Proximus and his tribe. One of Proximus's apes threatens to kill Suna, but May kills him with a gun she found. Proximus tells May that she can leave if she tells him where the other weapons are. May refuses and triggers the explosives, flooding the bunker with the apes inside. May flees the settlement while the apes climb to a higher ground through the bunker. Noah is pursued by Silva, but Noah traps and drowns him. Noah escapes the bunker with its clan, but Proximus attacks him. Noah leads his clan in summoning their eagles to attack Proximus and send him falling off a cliff into the sea. So May saves Suna, but then I thought for a minute like that she had killed his mother because I didn't see his mother again for a while, and I was going to be like, no.
Yeah.
But she killed other apes. So where does that fall? Where does that leave her in ape accounting?
I mean, I don't think in the eyes of Noah and them, I don't think they care as long as it's Proximus's apes.
Mm-hmm.
The ones loyal to Proximus, not the ones enslaved by him.
Right.
But at the same time, not much longer later, we watched Noah watch another ape drown.
Right.
Like, Noah doesn't just, like, see he's trapped and walk away. No, Noah stands there and watches him drown.
I mean, but if someone had killed your father and burned your village to the ground and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do, but it's...
No.
Yeah, but you see, that's kind of Caesar's legacy, too.
Yeah, it felt very personal and gruesome for Noah, but it seemed like he needed to see him die. And I think that death specifically lets him move on from the tragedy of the village burning. Like, we see that kind of evolve a little later, but I think that was him kind of finally able to put that event to rest and move on.
Right. I love how they build, because they took that time in the beginning to show us these people and their culture, it makes the payoff make more sense. Like, nobody's calling these apes Mary Sues. Like, they showed us they have control of these birds. So then it makes sense when the birds answer and start attacking. They show us that they are great climbers. And so that comes in at the end, like, climb, my apes, climb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I love the build up and payoff that this film gave me.
Yes. There's actual stakes, and you feel invested,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what's happening.
Yeah. Okay, so last part of the recap. As Noah's clan returns to build their home, May arrives to bid farewell to Noah. She explains that humans deserve another chance since they were once the dominant species, but Noah questions if apes and humans can coexist peacefully. As Noah takes Suna to look through a telescope he found on his journey, May travels to a human settlement at a satellite base, which is kept quarantined from the outside world. May delivers the decipher key, allowing the humans to reactivate the satellites and successfully contact other humans worldwide. So yeah, I got a little spoiled. Because I made a joke somewhere about like, I hope there's humans underground, because I want Beneath. I want this series version of Beneath. But and someone was like, "Oh, just watch this movie," and I was like, "Oh, there's going to be humans underground." So then I was waiting the whole movie. Where are the humans underground? They're in the vault. No, they're not in the vault.
Yes, it's very unsurprising that there's still humans alive, still clinging to the technological advances that they, created, like the satellites. And yes, we see it for communication, but I have a feeling we're going to see militarized tech.
Yeah.
In a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see the humans coming out of hiding and going back to war with the apes.
Uh-huh.
But I do think before we see her return with the key, we see May go to Noah's village, and it very much seemed like she had the intention of killing him.
Yeah, or she was ready to, at least.
Yes, it seemed in my eyes, it seemed that she was going there to kill a potential leader of these apes.
Mm-hmm.
Because she recognized what kind of threat he was. But then at the same time, her humanity stepped in and realized he hadn't done anything, that she wouldn't have done, that she did do.
Yeah.
And so we kind of see her walk away with that pistol hidden in her shirt or whatever she had it hidden
her like
in.
poncho or jacket, whatever.
Yeah, whatever the heck that was.
Yeah. I don't know that she was like wanted to kill him, but I think she was ready if things went south because she didn't know how he would take, what she did at the end with the blowing up of the.
Yeah.
But she was also right that it's good that because she did help them in a way because she killed off Proximus's apes.
Yeah, I mean she helped kill Proximus. She helped kill Silva.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those were two big ones that plagued Noah. She killed all of the apes that were loyal to him, and seemingly most of the enslaved apes left with Noah.
Right.
And decided to join the Eagle clan. So, like, it does seem like all of the tragedy of their village happened. They all grew as characters, but at the end of the day, their village was returned to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly, there's of course people gone, but it's still a village.
Right. And it's they have us questioning, like, do we want the humans to have more dominance again? And they have us rooting against our own kind.
Mm-hmm.
So just to run through the main cast really quick, we talked about most of these characters, but Noah was played by Owen Teague, and he's it seems like he's been in a lot of stuff, but nothing that I've watched. So I was kind of impressed by him, not really knowing who he was.
Yeah, I am in the same boat there.
Yeah, I love Andy Serkis, and I get why people miss him, but and this is probably a hot take, I kind of might be more into Noah as a protagonist.
I'm actually in the same boat with you. Of all the protagonists in the series, Noah is my favorite.
Mm-hmm. He feels the most real and the most like we don't know which way he's going to go.
Yes.
He's being formed. He comes from a good place, but so he's got
Yep.
that support. But then at the same time, he keeps getting the rug ripped out from under him. And obviously, there's something coming again in the next movie.
Well, and yeah, we're gonna see in the coming. I mean, they're calling it the Noah trilogy, so I'm gonna say the next two films.
Right.
We're going to see either history repeat itself,
Mm-hmm.
where Noah turns into essentially a warlord like Caesar did.
Mm-hmm.
And Caesar did that in the original timeline too. Or we're going to see Noah kind of embrace the peaceful aspects
Mm-hmm.
that, we've seen from other protagonists,
Right.
but they always end up devolving into violence. And so I'm curious to see if Noah will continue that trend or if we'll finally see that trend broken.
Yeah. I mean, it would be, yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is it could go either way. And that's something they've set up well. I love Eagle's Son. Eagle's Son was great comic relief and also an earned emotional payoff. I love that he got pecked in the face and then you could see everything. I kept looking for that mark on his forehead and it was there for the rest of the movie.
I didn't even think to look for that, but yeah, I don't remember not seeing it. So yeah, that's impressive.
So we've got a likable love interest, Suna, played by Lydia Peckham, and Anaya, their third friend, played by Travis Jeffrey. Now, do we think Anaya has feelings for Suna?
I am not sure. It's right now. It seems like we have Noah and Suna, who are going to be like the two in the trio that are in a relationship, and then it seems like Anaya is going to be the weird third friend, where either because we start to kind of see Suna and Noah become a thing at the end. Like they're on a horse together, they go to the planetarium together, and so either Anaya is going to become a problem, or he's going to be super happy for his friends and just love them together.
Right.
Like where I don't think there's going to be any middle ground there. I think it's going to be either he's in love with one of them and is pissed that they're together, or he's so happy for them and just glad to be around them.
Yeah. I was a little confused by his characterization because at times it was like they were trying to classify him as the fuck up, but then I wasn't sure if that was a joke or.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that
part
he's
of it
gonna.
To me seems like a less mature ape. Like he's supposed to still be like they're all teens, but like Noah and Suna are more grown up than him type of thing. Is kind of how I was thinking they were trying to portray it.
Okay. I mean, I just feel like he's going to mess things up somehow in the next movie, and I don't want it. And so, yeah, we had Noah's parents we talked about already, Dar and Koro, Sarah Wiseman, and Neil Sandilands. And then we have to talk a little bit more about Proximus Caesar, especially Kevin Durant's performance. He was so good, no?
Yes, Proximus is the best villain in the most recent 4 films. I'd argue Proximus is one of the top villains of the franchise.
Yeah.
Because he takes the ideas of Caesar again, but he takes the bad parts and he corrupts them even further. And he kind of embodies everything that the apes hated about humanity. To the point of enslavement.
Right.
Like, he's a very compelling villain, and I'm honestly kind of surprised he was killed off.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought Kevin Durant was so good. Like when you can look up videos of him saying what was it, 250 or whatever he said.
Oh yeah.
And you can just see that when you look at the ape version of it, they really copied him. I don't know. He just portrayed it so well. I wouldn't even have known it was him. So it's a shame that he's dead? Question mark.
He's another situation.
Mhm.
Like Raka, we never saw a body. The first thing I thought when Proximus hit the water
Mhm.
was he hit the water, not the rocks.
Mhm. Exactly.
There is a huge possibility that he just survived the fall.
Yeah.
Survived the fall. And God, if Proximus Caesar comes back with a vengeance,
Mhm.
oh, that could go bad.
And I feel like he and Raka are kind of mirror images of each other in a way because they are showing the two ways. Well, this is a man who saw the quote unquote enemy and saw humanity in them and thought that we could live together.
And I do think there's that added aspect of don't put them in a box
Mm-hmm.
where, like, you know, the chimps in these films, they typically have similar trends in behavior and even, the way they speak and things. But at the end of the day, they are all different.
Mm-hmm.
Enough.
Yeah.
The same way humans are all different. Like, we do see some of those.
Yeah.
And I do think it's helpful when you're looking at non-human characters, especially so many of them,
Mm-hmm.
that, like, people don't think that writers can effectively show the humanity of them.
Mm.
And we do see that. I mean, we've always seen it in these films.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's just a fun aspect of having the different ape species, and
Yeah.
again, why I wish we had
Yeah.
more
No, I
apes. But
agree. They should lean into it. I got so mad though, by the way, back toward the beginning of the film. So we had Eka Darville as Silva and Russ Samuel as Lightning. And they were, Proximus's guys on the road. And when
yeah,
they sacked the village and then at the end of it raised their arms and said, "For Caesar," I got so mad.
it kind of mirrors, and this is possibly a stretch, but in my eyes, it kind of mirrors the Crusades, where, like, you saw a lot of fighting from Christians,
Mm-hmm.
and they would say, for Christianity. And it was like, but they had twisted what that meant.
Right.
And in this film, we kind of see them twist the words and actions of Caesar and do something absolutely heinous in his name.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, does that mean I'm kind of equating Caesar to God here? Kind of.
Well, they
but
are.
that's essentially how they see him.
Yeah.
They see Caesar as a god. He was, their version of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we had Peter Macon played Raka, by the way, and of course we had William H. Macy as Trevathan. No, I'm forgetting how it's pronounced.
I still don't know how to say it, but
And that brings us, of course, to May, played by Freya Allen, who I was racking my brain about where I knew her from. So anyone else doing that, she's Ciri from The Witcher. And I know she's done the other stuff, but that's definitely what I know her for. So yeah, complicated character. Did you want her to team up with Trevathan?
part of me did. The other part of me, because she had already showed how cynical she was,
Mm-hmm.
part of me expected her to kill him and take his place. I figured she would become the human at Proximus' side.
Yeah.
Eventually I was right about half of that. She did kill him out of, cold blood, but I really expected her to side with Proximus. And I do think it's cool that she didn't, but she was always wary of the apes,
Mm-hmm.
but that kind of showed she was also wary of humans.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think? So, okay, so there's this pendant that gets passed around the entire movie. And the pendant is actually, it's the sign of Caesar. It's a circle with this sort of like four-pointed star inside. And it was the shape of the window in the house where Caesar grew up that he always looked out of. And now it's being repeated everywhere, made into this pendant. And it gets passed around this particular movie by Rocca attaching the legacy of Caesar to it in the way he means in terms of coexistence. And he eventually, this pendant ends up with May and she takes it. Do you think that will sway her later?
I hope so. I would love her to look at that thing the same way that Rocca did and Noah did.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I can see a cool parallel happening where we see May kind of like hold it up to the light type of thing
Mm-hmm.
and look through it. And I think if done right, it can mirror what we saw with Caesar and Rise.
Mm.
And I think it can show that like Caesar was kind of trapped for a while. His hope, his symbol of hope, was the shape of that window. And like it became his thing. But like I'm hoping it can become a thing for May too.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of represents similar ideas, but like she doesn't have to feel trapped by the other humans that are inevitably going to wage war on the apes.
Right. Yeah, but what if she indeed plays the role of Caesar, the leading an uprising?
That's where I'm not sure.
I like that they left it with that ambiguity, but they have me rooting for her and Caesar to be on the same side. I mean, sorry, for her and Noah to be on the same side.
Yes, I want those two to be on the same side, but I could also see her playing a Caesar style leader for the humans. But I don't know. I really don't know. I think we could see her take a leadership role on either side of the coin, and that's weird. I think it's a very unique thing that the franchise hasn't really delved into before.
Yeah. And I also like that so one thing that the Marvel comics attached to the Dawn of the Apes movie do well is that they show how this is something that's happening all over the world. And so they show there's like a terrorist organization that's trying to kill all the apes because they think they're making them sick and dying. There's this is happening in France, and there's a French-speaking gorilla who becomes a big deal called Pug. There's they show people coming from Africa to the U.S. with their apes, so it just makes the whole world feel bigger. And that was kind of missing in the prequel trilogy for me, and now in this film, I really feel it, and I feel it also with world-building details like the fact that Noah's clan calls the humans something else. They call them echoes. Did you know what an echo was right away?
I personally had a feeling it was, and then they kind of confirmed it. It kind of reminds me of what The Walking Dead has always done. They always call the zombies something.
Yeah.
They never use the word zombie, of course, but they call them walkers, they call them hushes, they call them whatever. And it's cool to see that, over hundreds of years, the apes have done the same thing in regards to the different human groups.
Yeah.
It's something that I really hope we see explored a little bit, even if it's a subtle thing. Even if it becomes a joke where it's like, what do you mean that's what you call those things? Like, they're talking about humans and they're all like, you use that word for them?
Yeah, but why do you think they use the word echo? Because they are echoes of the past?
Either echoes of the past or that they the way they used to speak, at least, was that they were like essentially parrots, where they just kind of seemed to repeat the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we know history repeats itself, so maybe the apes kind of picked up on that and, like, I don't know, I'm reaching here, but who knows?
Okay. All right, so just final highlights for the film. I'm going to go with, for one, the nuance. So, like, the question we've been talking about, Caesar's legacy. Like, is it coexistence or domination? Which is Caesar's legacy?
I think the intent was co-dominance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reality was totalitarian. One is over the other.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems that in this world, both groups are too stubborn to give up the power.
Yeah. I think that jumping forward in history 300 years was an inspired choice. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, it felt nice to move on past modern technology and kind of go back to the roots of the franchise where everything felt kind of Western-ish while also being limited tech.
Yeah. And I liked that it was really an apes versus apes movie, and we just kind of got like a human foil in the mix.
Yes, very much. We always have the ape versus ape conflict, but it always ends up turning back to humans versus apes.
Mm.
And, like, I know that's coming, but, like, this film taking the time to showcase the apes fighting with each other and trying to figure out themselves before this war with the humans comes.
Right. So then it just shows how uncertain.
It's going to add a lot of depth. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love the music. So it was the composer was John Pisano, who worked with Ball before in the Maze Runner trilogy. And he said that he wanted to, he incorporated the original themes from the 1968 film by Jerry Goldsmith into the score as well. So I thought it was just a really nice mix of, making it sound cohesive and as part of the bigger brand, but also indeed exploring new directions.
And I really respect that he didn't, like, just make a new thing. Like, he honored what came before. He included it. Like, we've seen that in Star Wars with Ludwig Göransson, who and I just butchered his name, but he, he always included John Williams' work with the score, and it showed. And you can tell that Paisano did the same. Like, he incorporated everything that came from the original films in some fashion. Like, you can hear the riffs, subtle, but they're there.
Any other highlights you want to shout out?
I mean, it was just a great time. Probably one of the best big budget blockbusters I've seen in a while.
Any lowlights you want to shout out? Anything you didn't like?
Honestly, with Kingdom, nope.
Yeah.
That thing was so close to perfect.
Yeah, I bitched about the Bonobo thing. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I'm usually a person that if it's over 2 hours, you gotta freaking justify it to me.
Yeah.
And this one, it felt like an hour had passed. Like, I was like, oh, it's over already? Like, it did its job. It knew what it was doing from the start. And it never hesitated.
Yeah, I thought it was the right mix of honoring the original and not falling into the traps of, like the previous trilogy, they got a lot of the iconic lines every adaptation has to use out of the way, like, get your stinking hands off me, and it's the madhouse. So, and then they mixed it up, like I said, with the chase, the facts that they waited for it made it more exciting when it happened. And you can see that they're laying the groundwork to honor the original movies as an entire series in new ways. Like, we can see that with the people underground. We'll see if we get some version of psychics or people wearing skin suits.
I doubt it, but we could we could see some like mutated humans
Yeah.
that like, their physicality, they're different. They have, I mean, we could see like a Cyclops type thing. Like, who knows?
Yeah. And the fact that they cast, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of her name, Dishin Lockman as Karina.
Yes.
So I know her especially from stuff like Dollhouse and Severance, but she's been very active actress for many years now.
Yes. She was also in, I might have this wrong. I want to say she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Because she was, yes, she was.
Yeah.
She was like the leader of an Inhuman clan.
Right.
And I don't remember if she was actually based on a comic character, but she was around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably where I first saw her.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, but you don't cast her for a throwaway character, so I'm guessing
no.
she's going to play a bigger role.
I have a feeling her and May have some like deeper connection too.
Yeah.
Like there's something between the two of them that like they, I don't know if it's like, mother-daughter type thing,
Mm-hmm.
but like I have a feeling there's some sort of relationship there that like we're gonna see explored.
Question though, because so when she came out to meet May, she was wearing like a hazmat suit, and then Maze, of course, has been walking around with bare skin. So I guess that means May is immune and she's not. But does May? She went up to see the satellites turn, I guess. But is she allowed inside, or does she have to stay outside because she might be a carrier?
I don't know. That did feel a little weird. It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you know much about the Fallout franchise.
I mean, I'm learning more now because of,
the show.
Yeah. And also, there's a podcast on this network, Radioactive Ramblings. They are going through all the lore too.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm in the middle of the show myself, but I had played a little bit of the games before, and it kind of reminds me of like the Vault, where you've got these people that are hiding from the world because it's become a wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
And in the eyes of these humans in Planet of the Apes, like it is a wasteland out there. It's run by apes, and the apes hunt humans, and
yeah, but they might still be. Is the virus still potentially going to affect them?
That's what, Fallout has the nuclear radiation,
Mm-hmm.
but does this world still have the simian flu? Is it still
By the way,
around?
If you like Fallout, have you watched Silo yet?
I have not.
Oh, you should. Well, it's another one where they are stuck underground for reasons. People compare it to Fallout. I think that there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, we're gonna see some stuff in the next 8 films.
Yeah. So how do you feel about? They want to do 9 films, so that means 5 more. How do you feel about that?
I'm a little worried. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But I think they can do it.
All right.
I mean, we got the Caesar trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get the Noah trilogy,
mm-hmm.
and my guess is we're gonna get another time jump.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's gonna be the best way for them to do it,
mm-hmm.
and it'll allow them to use other forms of media to fill in the gaps if they want. They can tell stories in comics, between them. They can write novels. It's what Star Wars does. Star Trek does it too, where they fill in gaps in timelines with other media for the diehard fans,
mm-hmm.
but also, the films can stand and do their own thing. And I have a feeling we're going to see kind of the birth of a new person.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had the prologue in Kingdom where it shows the death of Caesar, but I have a feeling we're going to have an epilogue in this second trilogy that kind of introduces us to the next one.
Okay. So yeah, this trilogy, this middle trilogy, I'm kind of thinking of it like playing the role of Battle for the Planet of the Apes in the original, where it's like the linking one between the two.
Yeah.
Ball said that this film was quote unquote set during the Dark Ages, where apes rediscover lost items from the past. And so I'm wondering if this trilogy set in the Dark Ages, does this imply that the next trilogy would be set in the apes Renaissance? Because I want to see that.
I have thought that as well. I do think there's a genuine possibility that at the end of the Noah trilogy here,
Mm-hmm.
we see the death of all humans.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would genuinely add such a unique spin.
Except for
to
the
these
ones that went
films.
underground to become psychics.
That would be cool. But I do think we will see a genuine, like, extinction level event.
Mm,
I guess we should say another extinction level
right.
event that kills off the remainder of the humans.
Mm-hmm.
But is it possible, or are we going to see them turn to human slavery?
So when do we think that? Yeah, I think we might see that actually. When do we think? So in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, there's an Easter egg in the background where there's a launch from Mars, but then the ship goes missing. When do we think that ship's going to show back up? Do we think it's going to be in this trilogy or the next trilogy?
My hope is the end of the Noah trilogy.
Okay.
Is I mentioned I hope there's like an epilogue type thing to tie into the next one. I think that would be it. It would not be surprising if this trilogy ends and if Noah's living happily ever after, he watches an asteroid crash,
Mm-hmm.
and then that kind of like introduces something,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the rocket, or Noah's dead and it's like his kid or something
Mm-hmm.
discovers this the rocket that's crashed.
Right.
But do we know, was that rocket manned?
I
I don't
I'm
remember
pretty
if they
sure
had said
that I
it
think
was or
so.
not. See, that would be, that just ties it right back to
Yeah,
the original
exactly.
then.
I felt like it seems pointed that they just kind of showed it in the background several times, the story developing without pointing to it, It seems
Yeah,
pointed they didn't point to it, but you know what I mean.
it would. Yeah, it very much seems like they're prepping something.
Mm-hmm.
But what that something is, I don't know. Are they going to reintroduce time travel? That
Yeah,
would be
why
nuts.
not?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them. We've got the whole world of the multiverse right now kind of
Mm-hmm.
going on in what seems like every other franchise. Like,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some time travel shenanigans where, maybe we even like go back to other films
mm,
and see moments like we see Caesar again.
I don't know. I hope they go forward. I want to see them go forward, but they can bring some humans forward from the past.
It would, I think what I would find really cool with the Mars rocket thing, somehow, I don't know how, connect all of them, make all the timelines connect
Mm-hmm.
somehow. Because as of right now, we've still got the weird two branches and then the weird third offshoot from the reboot.
You mean in the overall IP with everything?
Yes, in the overall IP.
Mm.
I would love to see the original 5 films, in addition to the series that tie into them, kind of connect to these modern films
I don't know.
somehow.
I don't know.
It would be a nightmare, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if they could do it effectively, it'd be fun.
But what if they actually manage to build some sort of utopia and then the humans from the past show up and fuck it up?
That's also a very real possibility.
Mm.
You see Heston in the first film, he lands on another planet,
Mm-hmm.
which we later know is Earth, but he does essentially lead an uprising against the apes.
Right.
Kind of a minor one,
Mm-hmm.
but we do see it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that mirrored.
Yeah.
Some form of these underground people that are, now in control of the satellites,
right,
for communications.
Yeah, talking to other people's. I liked that was another moment that made the world feel bigger. They're talking to people somewhere else.
And I do like the openness of, we don't know where those other people are.
Mm-hmm.
They could be in another place in the U.S. or they could be across the world.
Yeah. So I guess we're feeling quite bullish on the Disney era of the apes.
Yeah.
The box office it's doing okay. We're 2 weeks in now, and it's approaching 250 million globally. the reported budget is 160 million, and we all know reported budget is not real budget, but
Yeah. Especially when it comes to Disney, they do
yeah.
hide a lot of their numbers until well past box office runs, but I do think that they're going to continue profiting.
Mm-hmm.
I did see an article, and I don't know how reliable it was, but I did see something that indicated that the first three films of the modern era were getting increased streams on platforms.
Yeah, definitely.
Like Voodoo purchases for those three like
Yeah.
spiked,
Why?
like
Yeah.
way bigger than
I watched
other
them all.
films and
Yeah. I
franchises
watched them
do.
all.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm seeing people going back now and watching the previous movies because there's good word of mouth and people are just talking about the IP as a whole.
yeah, you definitely see that more with this one than I would have expected.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't lie, before I watched these films, I was always like, how do you like get so in love with an ape? Like, how do you fall in love with Andy Serkis playing
Right.
Caesar? And then you see it and you're like, oh my God. Like, duh, this is how.
Yeah.
Like, the writing is great
Yeah.
and then the acting is great. Like,
I am worried. I mean, because I want the film to obviously do very financially well because I want the other five. I am a little worried that it's going to be knocked out of first place by Furiosa this weekend. As we're recording, we are in the middle of opening weekend for Furiosa.
yeah, I think so too. Furiosa has the added benefit of a star-studded cast. They have Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, who are big household names right now, whereas Kingdom really doesn't have any big names.
Yeah.
And even if you did, you don't see them. You don't see their face.
Right.
So I do think it's going to have a harder time, but I do think Apes is a more accessible film.
For sure.
Whereas my understanding is Furiosa and the other Mad Max films, because I've only seen the first one, are very brutalistic.
I mean, yes, they are. And they're very different types of film. It's, I'm in the middle of rewatching them all before I go see it this weekend. But it's spectacle over depth. And then just ridiculousness for the sake of spectacle and amp it all up.
And that's fine. But I do think that we're going to see that outplay Kingdom. But Disney has this weird thing with longevity where sometimes they'll leave something in theaters for a long time and it'll start doing well at like week 7.
Yeah.
And it's just timing, and plus it's about the start of summer, so like
if they leave it up for 7 weeks because they've been yanking these down so quickly.
Yeah, my guess is Planet of the Apes is going to sit until it'll probably sit about a month and a half. I think we'll see it towards like the 3rd week of June, maybe the 4th week of June, but after that I think it's going to like lose its wide release.
Well, everyone go see it while you can. It's definitely worth seeing on the big screen. It's, quite the spectacle. Do you think that you'll read the book, Logan, or any of the comics or other books? Because there are actually, I don't think I even mentioned there's books tied into, especially Dawn.
Yeah, I have a couple books on my list. I have a couple comics on my list. I'm currently kind of on a Star Wars binge again, so I paused, but at some point I will probably slide over and get to some of the Apes stuff, because I've always enjoyed the extra world building stuff of the non-screen media. I read a bunch of Alien comics and it just added a lot to the Xenomorphs and even the human companies of the Alien franchise. Like, I love reading those tie-in things. And so Apes is definitely a franchise that I know I will touch as much of the content as I can.
Would you get any Apes merch? Because we learned in the documentary that this was kind of like the original merch machine, even before Star Wars. So would you buy Apes merch, and what merch would you get?
Oh God. I mean, shirts, of course.
Mhm.
Like, I'd love to have, I'd love to have a plain shirt that just has Bad Ape's face on it,
Yeah.
or something stupid. Like, these films are fun.
Mhm.
Like, you can take any fun moment and put it on something, or you can take the iconic moments of, Caesar holding up a rifle
Mhm.
and, put it on things. But I do think that, like, a shirt or, like, even like a hat or like a sweatshirt
Mhm.
would, like, be able to have fun. And I'm sure someone out there on, like, Etsy or whatever has made some fun variation of, those types of
Yeah.
things, and, a certain beloved character or whatever.
I went straight to Eagle Sun can opener.
That would certainly do the trick.
All right. Is there anything that we missed that you wanted to mention about this film or this IP?
Oh, I mean, I just have to mention again, Roddy McDowell. That man
See, this is why
is a
everyone.
legend.
I'd say to people, if you don't want to watch the original series, watch the documentary, and then let that sell you on watching the original.
Yes. Because, like, Roddy is just great. Like, he plays Cornelius very well,
Mm-hmm.
and then immediately he plays Cornelius' son, Caesar. And then, like, those two alone are so different. And then we get Galen in the show, and Galen is just this sarcastic little jerk. But, like, in the
He's so
best
sassy. I
ways.
love it.
Like,
He looks like the
yes,
most
you
fun to
have
play
to love
Galen.
him. But you can tell Roddy just had fun.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, like, let anything hinder him. He dealt with the weird prosthetics of the ape masks, and he went with it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see him reprise something. Even if he couldn't do the physicality anymore,
Well,
I'd
he's
love to
dead.
see him do the voice of something. Is he really?
Yeah, he passed away.
No!
I
I'm
think.
so hurt.
Yeah, I know.
I know he did a small role in the Burton movie.
I thought he passed away like shortly after the documentary.
Oh shoot, maybe I'm way off here. I'm looking now because I
Okay,
have to
yeah.
know. Oh my god, yeah, he died in 98.
Yeah, so like right after the documentary
What
came
the
out.
heck?
Yeah, so maybe I was wondering if he made the documentary as, because he knew and he wanted to leave behind that
Yeah, maybe
legacy.
it was his.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait. Oh god, I totally thought he was still alive.
I know, heartbreaking.
That's crazy. And he passed in 98. That was freaking. Okay, I'm not going to try to make you feel old here, but that's older than me. Like, that was before I was born.
It was not before I was born.
But to be fair, he lived 70 years. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had I would like a documentary about him.
Yes, because if you look at his credits,
Mm-hmm.
like, he's been in a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him on stage back in the day even.
I can't imagine that. He had to be so fun on stage.
Well, let's leave it on that note. Roddy McDowell is the best and the number one reason why you should watch the original series.
Absolute legend, yes.
Thank you so much, Logan, for joining me. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Chalk up another victory for the human spirit.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Thank you, listeners, for sticking around. Like Kingdom, this podcast will have an audio Easter egg after the credits. I'll make this quick, but just to shout out what's going on the network. Amongst our affiliates, do check out the deep dives into Tolkien lore on rings and rituals. And Properly Howard's Felonies and Fugazi season is wrapping up with a review of the original Rocky. Radioactive Ramblings is continuing to break down the factions and other entities of the Fallout universe, but they're also gearing up for weekly coverage of the new season of The Boys. We're just wrapping up season 2 of Beacon 23 on my own podcast, We'll Shift Dust, and about to dive back into Dune. And Shift, the second book in the Silo series, is getting the deep dive analysis in 3 parts in the We'll Shift Dust Book Club Patreon. While over in the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, we've just wrapped up a whirlwind tour of 25,000 years of Star Wars in-universe history with a final prep episode with everything you need to know going into the Acolyte, which John and I will then be covering weekly in crossover episodes, appearing on both that feed and this one. Also in this feed, John and I are doing weekly breakdowns of the new Doctor Who episodes, plus David, Aaron from Radioactive Ramblings, and I just recorded a high-octane Furiosa one-shot. Watch out for one-shots on the Bear, Interview with the Vampire, an Alien retrospective, and more to come, including episode-by-episode recaps of Season 1 of House of the Dragon from David and John. You'll already find those in the feed, followed by, coming soon, weekly coverage of Season 2. And if you're not already a patron and you want access to just the early Hot D episodes and the separate show guide with all the character breakdowns, then check out the new Season Pass feature. Or join us on Patreon, or even better, Supercast, which is like a better version of Patreon built specifically for podcasts. Either way, you'll get early and ad-free access to all episodes and show guides, plus extras like behind-the-scenes peeks at the people who make this podcast and how that gets done, plus our new 11Zs, extra movie reviews. Next month, patrons will vote on one of 3 selections from the Essential Elysia list. The choices are going to be The Fifth Element, The Princess Bride, or Everything Everywhere All at Once. And as always, a special shout out to our top supporters. First of all, thank you to our Discord server boosters who keep the social side and also frequently the technical side of the Lorehounds universe running. Those are Gnarls, Aaron K., Tiller the Thriller, Dork of the Ninjas, Duve71, and Captain Gingy56. And thank you especially to our lore masters. These are our top tier supporters, and without you, we would not be able to do this. Thank you, Samartian, Michael G., Michelle E., David W., Brian P., Nick W., SC, Peter O.H., Bettina W., Adam S., Nancy M., Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H., Sarah L., Gareth C., Eric F., Matthew M., Sarah M., DJ Miwa, Andra B., Kwang Yu, Jedi Bob, Nathan T., Alex V., Aaron T., Sub-Zero, Aaron K., Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, and always last, Adrienne. Whether or not this extra stuff is for you, we really appreciate your ears and your continued support through your listens and especially shares and reviews that help others find us as well. Just overall, thank you for being a Lorehound.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.
Together, Lorehounds strong.